Oh, hello everyone, and welcome to IDENTECO After Dark, the show where we talk about games, TV, music, movies, and more. My name is Mallo. I am your host. I am joined, as I am very often, by my co-conspirator Alex. Welcome,
What's
sir.
going on? What's
And
up?
Tonight, back by popular demand, we got Joe.
Popular demand?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Twitter loves you. I'm looking at Twitter timeline right now. They love you.
Last week's stream was great. That was like a lot of interaction.
We got Risa, we got Tip, we got a bit player in the chat. See, I can talk about it now. We got people in the chat. We're not doing storytelling anymore, so I can talk to you all directly. Hello, welcome, hi. Come on in. Gather around the monitor's warming glow or your phone, if that is how you are watching tonight. Come on in, have a good time.
Actually, warm monitors if you're still using a CRT.
Oh,
It is.
Phil just showed up, so he's gonna troll the crap out of us.
Lies and slander. That's okay. We have moderators in chat to take care of it if need be. It's all good.
Anybody in here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Property values going down. Just saying.
Okay.
Tonight we're talking about Dune, the 2021 version, not the David Lynch version.
Although maybe we could chat about that later in the context of the greater Dune.
I guarantee it's going to be
Discussion.
cross-referenced at least a few times.
I guess so. Yeah.
Probably.
Well, I'm just gonna put it out there for everybody. I didn't see it, so I'm not gonna do any talking about the current Dune because I didn't see it. It's not my job to fucking see it. I'll see it when I goddamn please.
On HBO
So,
Max.
yeah, I know. I'll see it when I goddamn please. I had sports to watch this weekend. You
I'll
fucking
tell you.
nerds.
I've seen it twice, so therefore I've seen it enough for you.
Wait,
There you go.
You went and saw it again?
I saw it this afternoon again.
Okay. So you're
Yeah.
a
I'm
little fresher
letting
than I am.
I'm letting the two that really give a shit about this movie talk about it.
Okay.
Well,
so,
heavy spoilers incoming.
Oh
by
yeah.
the way, you know what?
Spoiler alert. I don't have a little thing for that, but
Can we really quick talk about this? The Dune books have been out for 50 years. If you don't know the story of Dune, okay? If you don't know the story of Dune, I can't help you at this point. I really can't. Okay? Like, I think there should be a time limit on spoilers for adaptations of no time.
Agreed.
Okay? Like, especially if the book's been out for 50 years.
My stance is if a movie or book has been out for more than 5 years, the spoiler tag has expired. You've had a chance.
I agree.
Snape killed Dumbledore.
Yep, that's right.
You know, I made that joke once on this stream, and then I got a message from Wild Pants and said, so-and-so's actually just reading those for the first time, and you just spoiled it. It's like,
Well, I'm sorry to them if I
Have
just
you not been-
spoiled it for them.
have you not been on the internet in the last 10 years?
Also, well, you know, there's a lot of different pockets of the internet. It's like the Outer Rim worlds in Star Wars. There's a lot of different places and pockets that you could go into that, and so
Very true.
most of them are hives of scum and villainy. So I don't necessarily assume that if somebody hasn't seen something for the most part nowadays with so much stuff, it's what it is. Oh no, don't spoil the Hobbit.
My life is ruined. I love it. So let's real quick, for anybody who doesn't know or has been living under a rock on Mars, right? This newest adaptation was done by Denis Villeneuve, who did Arrival and Blade Runner 2049, both of which were great films. Blade Runner 2049 kind of got shit on, I think, because of...
How terrible it was.
No, I thought it was really good, but it just, the way that they pushed that movie out, the way they did it was funky. And we can talk about that in adaptations later. So, Joe, I'm actually gonna say, why don't you go first? Because Joe and I went to see this Saturday night.
Yeah.
So Joe and I actually went to a theater late at night because we figured there would be less humans. On that note, I would like to note there's a reason I remember why there's sometimes I don't like the theater experience. There were these two 15-year-old fuckers in front of us who kept getting up in the middle of the movie. They got up like 4 times. They just would walk right in front of us. I was just like, I'm going to fucking stab you.
I just want to point it out right now too, is that somebody in the chat just said that when she was younger, she thought Dune and Tremors featured the same worms. That's canon now. It's fucking canon. Tremors is just Dune many years earlier.
There's only so many ways you can make a worm. So, I mean, I kind of get that.
True.
Well, I've seen it twice. I watched it today to kind of give myself a refresher, and I also wanted to go back and double check some things on it. And I will say, if you're gonna see it, go see it in the theaters. If you are comfortable doing that. It's perfectly fine to see it on the television if you don't feel comfortable doing that. But it is a release that is very much meant for a theatrical release. You get much more out of it from a big theater with the big screen and all that nonsense than you do sitting in front of your television, unless you have like just a crazy home theater setup, which could work. But I still feel like it was definitely something that was really designed for the big screen, which is kind of a duh moment, but it loses something in the translation to the smaller screens. But I really liked it a lot. Like, I think this is one of the most faithful adaptations to the book that has been made to this point. And in a broader category of book to movie adaptations, not just specifically in Dune, I think this is still one of the best, closest ones I've seen.
Yes.
I will say that I worry that there's going to be a huge amount of collective what out in the world right now after seeing it, because Dune is weird.
No, you don't say.
Dune is weird.
So
we live in a world where there's Masked Singer and that stupid ass Avatar singing competition on Fox, and you're gonna tell me that Dune is weird? I'm not buying it.
I think here's that is weird. The more that people are going to have to actually engage their brains, and let's be honest,
that's because the plot is nonsense half the time.
So I've been thinking about this a lot in preparation for this stream, and I'm not sure, and I would love to hear if anybody in the chat wasn't super familiar with Dune when they went to see it. If they didn't understand the story when they went to see it, I would love to know what their impressions were. It's difficult for me to judge because I had read Dune a few times, and I've read it, periodically over the last 30 years. So it actually was the fact that one of the things that I'm concerned about specifically for the second movie is they left some things out or didn't explain things. And then it hit me earlier today where I was like, they did it to keep it simple for people. Because if you added all this other stuff that like matters but doesn't quite matter yet, that's where I think people would be like, what the fuck? Because like, just as an example, they mentioned the Spacing Guild briefly, but they don't talk about it. They don't talk about the navigators. They don't talk about why they rely on the spice. They don't talk about what they look like.
I'm gonna make you backtrack a little bit on that one, because that's one of the things I went back and watched it again for.
Okay.
They actually do mention why spice is important, what the navigators' role are, and how they use the spice. But it's literally just like a 5-second blurb at the very beginning of the movie, and then they never cover it again.
Did they say the words, the spice must flow?
No.
Yeah.
Fuck it, terrible movie. Fuck that.
Not sure.
Cancel that shit. Call up Warner Brothers. No on part 2. It's bullshit. Fuck it.
They didn't, and that's because this is since we're already on the topic of things that they've adapted. One of the things that I think that they changed that I did not like was that the spice must flow comes from the very beginning of the movies and the books, because at the very beginning of the previous adaptations and in the book, it opens up with the Navigator Guild basically telling the Emperor that Paul Atreides is coming and they need to do something about it. And that's where the phrase spice must flow, because they're worried about a disruption in the spice. In this movie, you never see the Navigators at all. They're not in the film a single bit. You see their ship in space, but that's about it.
Yeah. So, like Joe, I really enjoyed the movie. I think that there was a couple of points where the pacing got a little off, right? where I think they slowed down a bit much. I think they could have gotten more exposition and more explanation in had they cut a couple of things out. I will be curious to see what the deleted scenes look like when we get stuff like deleted scenes. Visually and from a filmmaking perspective, it's beautiful. Like, it's amazingly shot. The color tones, like, you definitely get a lot. I think that if there was one thing I didn't like, it's how certain characters weren't developed very well. And the one that sticks out the most to me is Gurney Halleck. Josh Brolin does what he can with the material he's given in the film, but Gurney Halleck is so much more important, and is such a deeper character. That I think they kind of gave Gurney short shrift. They were so focused on Duncan, Idaho, and Duncan, Idaho is also very important to Dune as a whole, as we all know, but Gurney really kind of got left out in the cold.
I think they kind of left Duncan, Idaho out in the cold a little bit too. Like, he had a much bigger role than Gurney Halleck did, because Gurney Halleck's only in a whole movie for, what, 3 or 4 scenes?
Yeah, it's not much.
Relatively little. But Duncan, Idaho's in it a bit more than that, but not much more. And I kind of feel like Duncan, Idaho was notable, and this is what I went back. One of the things I went back and watched it today for, because I was curious if they did it according to the book. In the book, Duncan, Idaho kills 19 Sardaukar.
Yes.
I counted today. They shortchanged him. He only killed 16.
I would like to point out, and Mallo, back me up here, only Joe would go back to that scene, which is after they meet up with, you're talking about the one where he meets up with Liet Kynes?
Yes and no. When after they meet up in the desert,
right.
He kills 13 there. I'm counting the other 3 he kills in the palace before he leaves. So he kills a total of 16, but in the books, he kills 19.
Only Joe's salty ass would go back and be like, 1, 2, 3.
It upset me. It upset me a little bit because, and this is why I think they didn't develop Duncan, Idaho very much. The fact that Duncan, Idaho was able to kill 19 Sardaukar is extremely notable in that world, because Sardaukar are like the premier military dudes.
Yeah.
Agreed, Risa.
And the fact that he killed 19 of them is like, it's not just that he killed one and survived. He killed fucking 19 of them. Like, that's a notable thing in that world.
And by the way, spoiler, he actually does continue to survive. He comes back. Like, you're going to see him die in part 1 here. He doesn't die there. Neither does Gurney. They'll be back.
Gurney just kind of vanishes in this film. Like, it shows him, like, leading a charge, and then that's, like, the last time you see him.
Yeah. Let's burn through the rest of the cast, and I'm going to leave Paul for last. Oscar Isaac, how did you like him as Duke Leto?
I liked him quite a bit. I like Oscar Isaac. I think his portrayal of Poe in Star Wars is probably one of the few good portrayals in that film series. I think he did an excellent job here. I know that it's kind of a duh that he gets killed because he's Duke Leto, but I was kind of sad that he wasn't in more of the film.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we talked about Gurney. I think Jason Momoa did a good job as Duncan, Idaho. I thought he had that playful, like, super soldier kind of move with him. So I'm going to talk about Stephen McKinley Henderson of Sliffy Hawat, and here's my other gripe. They really don't explain mentats, what the hell a mentat is, what the hell the mentats do, why there are mentats.
Isn't that a like mouth drop, like a thing you use to get good breath?
I thought that was Mentos, the fresh maker.
Yeah, that's gonna be a new commercial I'm gonna shoot. It's called Mentat, the fresh maker.
I would be surprised if someone hadn't made that already.
Probably.
I'm sure they have, because I want to see, I don't know, Thilfer Herat lifting a Volkswagen Bug that some girl got stuck in the middle of the thing, like that commercial. Phil's pointing out in the chat the Butlerian Jihad, why there are basically no thinking computers. They don't really cover mentats. I think that kind of got short shrift too. The whole concept of mentats.
I kind of feel like I wish they would explain it a little bit more, but I also kind of feel like that was one of the things they cut to try to fit more of it in, because it in the background it is a pretty big plot point in the book, but I don't think it's really something they need to hit. And we all know they're going to have to cut some things to make it fit into a reasonable hour.
Stellan Skarsgard as Baron Vladimir Harkin.
Loved him.
I thought he did a good job.
He's definitely a different take on Baron Harkonnen than we've seen previously, because all the previous incarnation he's been just kind of maniacal and crazy, and this is a very slow, calculating, thoughtful version of him, which honestly to me makes him hellaciously more sinister.
Yeah, no, I thought, aside from the fact that they kind of dialed down some of his what's called predilections.
That was one of my disappointments with this one. Is Baron Harkonnen is supposed to be just an absolute garbage pile of a human being, both physically and morally.
Yep.
And they kind of dialed that back with this one, and I kind of understand why they did, because, like, you know, in the books he has slaves with little heart valves so he can drain their blood out and bathe in it. Like, I understand that's probably a little much for most audiences, especially this day and age, to show that.
Yeah.
I think that would be a little bit much for most audiences on any day. Like, let's be real about that.
Yeah. But he did an excellent job, and I'm impressed by his acting just about in everything he does, because he's really able to portray, just through like facial expressions, just this really sinister, evil person.
Tip says, notice that we haven't seen Freyed Harkonnen, saving that one for 2.
Yeah. So I think we talk about that. We talk about the adaptations where we think they're going into. How about our Rebecca Ferguson, our Lady Jessica? What did you think, Joe?
I liked her acting. I, however, didn't really hugely care for their portrayal of Jessica in this one. Like, she did a fantastic job with the acting.
With the material that she was given, yeah.
But they made her... Which, I'll admit, it's been a long time since I've read the books, but I don't recall Jessica being that emotionally volatile as she was in this one. She was always very afraid for her son. That was always the thing that was pretty covered, but her whole thing was that she's a Bene Gesserit, so she had her emotions under lock. And they very rarely came out. Like, about the only time you see it when it come out was when she's interacting with Duke Leto right before he gets killed.
I'm going to push up my glasses in the 50 pages of the book that I was able to read, and I would like to disagree with you, because that's the only thing I took away from those 50 pages was that she did not want her fucking son anywhere near any of that shit.
Oh yeah, she didn't want her
And
son anywhere near.
She was not happy.
But she spent about the first half of this movie crying. And I'm like, I get it. I just don't think that was a very particularly good Lady Jessica portrayal.
Oh, that was the only thing that we didn't get, and I actually thought about this too, and then it clicked with me after I was going back to do some review on the books. So they mention it right at the end of the book, but they don't talk about the fact that she is a badass fighter, right? It's the weirding way, and their weird way of fighting. They show it at the very end where he's like, she's fighting one of the Fremen when her and Paul first meet up with Stilgar and the guys out at near the Siege, and the guy she's fighting with right at the end of the spot in the movie, he's like, you didn't tell me you were one of those weirding people. And she's like, our conversation got cut short, right? Yeah. I wish they would have kind of like showed more of that for Jessica. Was that, again, this is a person who's been trained since birth to be this mover and shaker, not just with her mental powers, but as a, like, I will stab a motherfucker.
Yeah, she was when she was fighting Stilgar at the end. That's who she was fighting. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to dig on her for what she did. She did a very good job with what she did in the film. I just don't think that was a fantastic adaptation of Jessica.
All right, let's hit Javier Bardem, who played our Stilgar. He's not in the film much, but I thought what he did worked.
Just felt very Fremen to me.
Yep.
Felt very Stilgar, because Stilgar was, in the book was kind of very reserved until he really got to know Paul, and then even then he's still kind of reserved, but he opens up a little bit more.
And then obviously Chani we see in visions, and then for all of about 5 minutes.
Yep. Way to sell a movie on having Zendaya on there and then not actually use it.
My main comment on that
Best
is,
fucking paycheck she's probably ever gotten.
right?
Apparently she got paid only $300,000 for the 10 minutes that she
Only $300,000.
She only
Only.
She was only on set filming for 4 days.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's be real about that. That is a lot of money for 4 days of
I was
work.
just fucking around.
The one thing about her, and it has nothing to do with her acting, but it was an article that I read before we went and saw the movie about how it was I forget which one it was, but it was one of those women-oriented like magazine website kind of things.
Careful.
And their biggest question was like how she coped with the air quote barely there costumes they had her in. And I'm like, what movie did you see? Because at no point was she ever barely there in costumes. Like
She wore a still suit.
Like at one point in one of the shots, you see like the outline of her calves.
Are you sure you weren't reading like a Mormon women's magazine?
It was an interview with her. I don't remember who it was, but I was just like, oh no, they showed her ankles. Lord help me. 1953 again.
I mean, it will be if the Republicans keep winning. Topical humor.
As somebody in the chat pointed out, yeah, we're going to see a lot more of Chani in the next movie, and we know that. All right, so let's go to the final one in our thing, and I'm really curious about this. This is one where, in the dialogues that I've heard a lot of mixed feelings on this, compared to, especially, like I said, the David Lynch version and then the Sci-Fi Channel adaptation from the early 2000s. What did you think of Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides?
I think he did okay. Mainly,
I'm hearing a but.
He was a lot more moody than I was anticipating. Which I know Paul was kind of moody. I mean, he's supposed to be like a 15, 16-year-old kid. So, yeah, it makes sense he's moody. He is very dark and brooding, which I don't think is necessarily an accurate representation of him, of Paul Atreides. I mean, it makes sense that he was like that after everything went to shit and he's out in the desert, sure. But, like, he was like Captain Depresso up in Caliban.
Yeah.
But I think he did a good job. I like him better than God. What was his name in the David Lynch one? The actor's name.
Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah, I think he did a better job than he did, which isn't saying much because his acting was very typical of the time period, kind of over the top and weird. And he did not look like he was a 15-year-old.
That whole David Lynch one is.
Timothée Chalamet fit the role better, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, so there's our cast.
I do want to backtrack to Jason Momoa real quick if we can for a second.
Yeah, go.
I love Jason Momoa. I think he's a fantastic human being. He's done really good work. But let's be honest here, in most of his films, he's kind of one tone.
He's Jason Momoa.
He's very, very much kind of a meathead, Mr. Tough Guy kind of thing. They managed to make him not be a meathead Mr. Tough Guy in this one. I really liked his portrayal. It showed a lot more character and emotional range out of him, this one, than in previous films he's done.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I really appreciated that, because I kind of feel like he gets typecast a lot, and they don't let him be an actor.
You definitely felt a lot of the bond, and I'm not sure if it was more him or Chalamet or kind of a combination of both. You felt the bond between Duncan Idaho and Paul Atreides. Like when Duncan goes out to fight the 13 Sardaukar, when they meet with Liet Kynes in the desert, like you feel that, and it's after this scene where they've learned that Duke Leto has died. Paul and Jessica have been hiding in the desert for a couple of nights, and then they manage to roll up on Duncan. And Duncan's like, the Duke is dead. And then he kneels before Paul, and he's like, my Duke. But again, you get it in this sense that he feels horrible grief for Duke Leto dying, and he's telling Paul, "You're my friend. I will follow you to hell and back." And I thought the scene played really well, and you felt that like Duncan was gonna like murder fools for Paul.
So in some of the things I've seen since then, that they were talking, people on the set that were involved in making the movie were talking that they wanted Duncan Idaho to be seen as a big brother figure, and they did that. But I think personally, it's not the vibe I got was not big brother. It's cool uncle, and Gurney is the other uncle who's not quite as cool but knows his shit. So I kind of got more of an uncle nephew vibe out of it, especially since he calls him my boy like all the time. But yeah, I really like their interaction. I think they really finally used Jason Momoa to his potential.
I'd agree with that. I like Momoa. I thought he did a good job. So with that, again, that's kind of our general thoughts on this Dune. So let's talk about adaptation, but let's start that discussion by talking about the next Dune movie. Because here's and this is kind of like my feeling on Dune Part 1 and going into Dune Part 2 and what I'm concerned about. And the chat's brought up a couple of things, like there's no Fade Rautha. You don't see him in the film at all. They don't even introduce him. You don't see Princess Irulan. You don't see the Padishah Emperor. The Padishah Emperor is referred to twice, maybe 3 times. They don't talk about it much. You know there's an Imperium and there's an Emperor, but you're not really sure what their relationship is. And so my fear for the second film, and this, again, talking about our adaptations, is the second film's going to have a lot of heavy lifting to do to get us through it.
I think they're going to introduce Fade with the second one, because
they're going to, but I'm saying the amount of crap they've got to cram into the second movie because they left all of it out of the first one is rough.
There's going to be some pretty huge time jumps in the second one, or in between the first and the second one, because in the book, from the time that the Harkonnens wipe out the Atreides forces and the time that Paul comes back is several years. It's like two or 3 years.
2 or 3 years.
And if I remember right, Fade was brought in because what's his face wasn't getting the job done.
It's not that. So, and this is again why, and you see a scene that kind of brings it up in the movie, in that there's a scene where Baron Harkonnen tells Robin the Beast, and he goes, "Hey, yeah, kill them all." But the thing is that Baron Harkonnen in the books early is putting Beast Ravan in charge to make sure that he goes so over the top that Fade Rautha seems reasonable in comparison. Right? And there's no reference to that. You don't know Fade Rautha exists. Right?
Yeah.
The other thing the book does is that you know from chapter 1, because there's the entries to each chapter by Princess Irulan, that she's married to Paul, and that all of this has already happened, and that there's a whole thing here, and that Paul is Muad'Dib, Paul is going to become and you have some feeling as to where it's going, which is completely left out of the film. And I'm worried that because they've got to jam all that stuff in there into the second one, it's going to cause them to rush some stuff.
I think the second one is, I think we're going to end up in 3 parts. I like, at this point, people keep mentioning Dune Messiah, and I know they've talked about it.
So that's the director, Denis Villeneuve.
I know.
He wants
don't think they're going to get there.
He wants to do Dune Messiah as the 3rd movie.
I don't think they're going to get there. I think he's misdirecting a little bit too, because he wants to leave some surprise for whenever it actually gets released. But I don't see how they're going to do it. 2 is going to be their Empire Strikes Back. It's going to be when the Harkonnens are fully in control of everything, and everything's kind of shit on the planet because they're waging their war against the Fremen to try to eliminate them. And then you're going to see Paul learning how to be a Fremen and starting to build up his leadership of the Fremen. And then in the final movie, I think, is where we're going to see the confrontation between the Fremen and Harkonnen.
Everybody in the chat, mark this down and clip this for later. Joe thinks they're going to stretch Dune, just Dune, into 3 movies.
I don't see how they're not going to.
I think that they're going to rush through the rest of it. I think that I think that
Maybe.
I don't think Villeneuve is lying here. I think he's being straight up. I think he's gonna rush it.
I can't see it because Dune Messiah it's not nearly as popular in the pop culture as Dune itself is. And I would say even people who have read Dune, I would say very few of them have actually read Dune Messiah.
Phil is in the chat going, they made damn 3 Hobbit movies. That's true. That's also Peter Jackson being Peter Jackson. And that's a whole other set of that.
Peter Jackson also pitched that as 3 Hobbit movies to the business people who can make a lot more money.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're going to do most of the development of Paul in 2, and then 3, if they do anything with Dune Messiah, it's going to be a tack on to the end of the story of Dune.
Actually, this is where I think because Sean brings up a good point, is that Jackson pitched this, but there's also one other thing happening between now and the release of the next Dune, and I'm curious what Sean's thought process is compared to what Joe's saying and things like this, is that Warner Brothers is currently being purchased. So right now, for those that don't know, Warner Brothers is owned by AT&T. AT&T is selling the entire Warner Brothers brand, to include HBO and all its crap, to Discovery, which is a very different network, and their CEO runs things really differently than AT&T does. Does that have an impact on how they look at this franchise?
Depends on how much money it makes in the box office. I haven't seen any figures for it yet, but
well, look, Sean, what do you think? Do you think that makes a difference?
Depends on who's financing it, because Warner Bros. Didn't actually finance the movie. So
Legendary did,
which is a different subset of it. And so Warner Brothers and Legendary financed this particular one, and it kind of depends on how well the second one does. The way that things get made is if you keep making money, people will keep giving you money to go make more of that same thing, because they'll always make more money on what you're making than what it cost them to make it. So,
well, I had heard they'd already greenlit the second one.
They have greenlit
the second one, yeah.
I think we'll at least get that one. I don't know what kind of
they had the minute it leaked that it was part 1 and not the full movie, they had to come out and say that they greenlit the thing, because there were like 15,000 stories written to be like, oh, but they haven't said there's going to be a part 2. What's going to happen? You know.
Well, I mean, I imagine once it's been greenlit, there's probably some contracts that have been signed and whatnot that may not necessarily make it impossible to get 2 done, but
knowing well, but so contracts are picked up a little bit differently than that, and so those can be, as we learned through the Scarlett Johansson bullshit with Disney, like, it doesn't matter what else is going on in the world. If you have a contract that says you're going to pay somebody a certain amount of money, you're gonna have to pay them that amount of money. So they probably have not secured. That's an all-star cast. As much as I want to shit on the story for being all over the place and obtuse at points, that's a lot of money you're paying to some really like top tier actors, and it's not going to be cheap to get them back on the hook now that they've seen that they can make one. Like, every agent out there is going to ask for more money, rightfully so, because their name's going to help carry the film. So on the box office thing globally, because again, we'll caveat a couple of these things. Globally, Dune's done just over 300 million global, which for this time period is really good, because there's still a lot of people not going to theaters. And they also decided that whole Warner Brothers, and we could debate whether that was a smart move or not, the Warner Brothers decision to simul-release all of their 2021 films in theaters and on HBO Max at the same time probably hurt the box office quite a bit. But again, globally, it's done over 300 million, and it was a $165 million budget. So it's made its money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some all-time box office amounts, and some of this is you have to take with a grain of salt because, you know, money differences at the time. Mm-hmm. But that's not a bad showing, especially since it's only been out for what? It's been out in Europe a little bit longer than,
and that's where it's made most of its money.
I'd be interested to see what it is in a few weeks.
Significantly less. To top on that too, I think HBO Max has lost 1.8 million subscribers, I believe. The earnings was just updated. Partially they blame that on leaving Amazon Prime channels because the contracts all left, and so they went on their way. You could, at the time, purchase an HBO subscription through Amazon Prime. And now you can't do that anymore. You got to go directly to it. So I think that's part of the issues with the streaming service, but they're still, I think they ended the third quarter with like 45 million plus subscribers. So it's not a small number by any means.
47's the last number I've got.
I'm looking at
in the US.
No, they finished third quarter in September with 45.2 million. I got the numbers.
So that
in front
is
of me.
down. That's down.
So
that's down 2 million in the US.
Yep. So, they were up around 69 million-ish or so during the earlier part of the year and late last year. So it's, been in a steady decline if you're looking at if you're a bean counter looking at the numbers.
I think we're having broadcast problems. The Twitch stream is stalled for me.
It is not stalled. Blink twice if it says back, I guess.
All right, so we're back.
We're gonna go with that.
Hi, everybody.
We're just gonna go with Twitch shit the bed, and we restarted and we do it again.
Something.
Apparently
we're blaming Lance for this, for not taking over the whatever server farm needs to be running this right now.
Lance would like trash a server farm at this point. Like, I think that would be interesting.
Probably. So again, we kind of left off with second one's probably gonna have to do a lot of heavy lifting, things like that. We've had a lot of classic adaptations lately with Dune, and then we had Foundation, which I'll chat about in a little bit. Which
now then it'll be your turn to be salty.
Oh, it's frustrating, but
here's the thing, and I've been wanting to share this since before I had to fix the stream for stuff. Anything in part 2 can be better than what I'm about to show you. Look at this. Look at this right here. Look at that shit right there. That's a goddamn jump rope. It's a fucking jump rope. They just made a bunch of fucking jump ropes.
It was 1984, man. They only had so much.
1984 was legitimately the best year ever because it was when I was born. So they could have made a really good Dune back then. You know what else also came out in the mid 80s? The fucking Empire Strikes Back, and it was fan-fucking-tastic.
Actually came out in 1980, and Return of the Jedi was 83, so you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
That was good, but the thing is they use a lot of cheap over-the-shelf stuff in Star Wars, but they made it look better.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is you can always improve it. You just don't, go get a jump rope and then attach that to your main character.
Okay.
Just saying. That's all I'm saying.
I will say this, from just a straight-up adaptation point, I think this one is both a better and a prettier adaptation than either the 1984 or the 2001 Sci-Fi Channel version of these movies, these books. Yeah.
But one thing.
Here's the thing that I'm going to say as we leave on to it is Dune never should have been a movie. Denis Villeneuve has a great way of shooting stuff that I appreciate as a fellow cinematographer, but the storytelling just is never there in any of his movies. It wasn't there in Blade Runner.
Let's go back, because there's one in particular that I love of his that I thought, and it's actually an adaptation of a short story, and that was Arrival.
I didn't like any. They're also so esoteric. I didn't really care for it that much.
That was kind of what I.
So I don't have an input on that one.
What I liked was that he actually inserted a little more action, because he decided to put any action in there. The whole thing is supposed to be a concept on language. So you didn't like that one either?
It was okay, but he wasn't the writer, and that's the best thing. Like, he's George Lucas for this generation. When he's not the writer,
did he write this too?
No, yeah, he did. He's got a writing credit. He's writing this one and
Spates did.
Yep. He doesn't have a writing credit on this one. He doesn't have a writing credit on Blade Runner 2049, which is why it's passable. He didn't have a writing credit on Sicario as well, and that was the fucking Oscar-winning one, I believe. Right? He won. He won the Oscar for Sicario, right?
Sicario? Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So, you know, like, let the man just make a film.
I really like this one. I don't have a huge amount of qualms with the way the story was presented, or acting, or story, or dialogue, or any of that stuff. I really like Blade Runner 2049. I liked it a lot. I've come to the realization I really like the way Peter Villeneuve does cinematography and shots, and the quality of the CG that he ends up in his movies. And I love how we've all pronounced his last name 3 different ways.
So, I do know his first name is Denis. I've heard his last name pronounced a bunch of different ways, so I'm going with the way that looks right to my Latino self.
But I really
Except it's French. He's Canadian.
Is he?
Yes.
Yeah, he has a heavy French accent.
Oh, but he is. He's from Quebec. I'm actually looking at his IMDb page right now. All right, maybe I'm doing it wrong.
I've seen
Stupid
some of the
Latin-based languages.
behind the scenes interviews with him. He has a thick accent.
Yes.
Okay.
It's also, by the way, it's not Dennis that's doing it. It's Greg Fraser. Like, he's the cinematographer behind all those great shots in those movies.
Yeah, but he hired him, so he gets credit for it, I guess.
He's still the director. He gets some credit
but he's
for it.
also but no, because it's actually not him who hires him. It's the executive producer that hires him, because that's the person that's behind the thing.
Mallo, this is where I'm going to request that you push your glasses up.
I'll fucking take them off. There you go. I'm taking them the fuck off. Ungoddamn bound, baby.
I appreciate your input because you know a lot more about this than we do. But
and you know what else Fraser shot? The fucking Mandalorian. That's why he's so goddamn good.
Times that you're like getting the glasses pushing territory.
Yeah, he shot 3 chapters of the first season of Mandalorian and set the fucking tone for what great television should be, which is where Dune should be. Dune should be this version of space Game of Thrones, but with an actually good ending. Like, eschew the later books that suck terribly, and actually make a good ending. Well, yes. I think a lot of people do. I don't think there's a whole lot of argument.
That would be my guess as to why he wants to stop with Messiah, is because after Messiah, it gets bananas.
Yeah.
I've heard anecdotally that was because Herbert told the story he wanted to tell in the first 2 books, and his publishers basically forced him to write more, so he just ended up making it crazy, trying to get him to stop.
Yeah. I would also say, by the way, too, that Fraser shot Rogue One, which is by far one of the best Star Wars movies ever, and yeah. So then again, shout out to my cinematographer boys.
They did amazing with the visuals in this. This is one of the only shot that I was like, ooh, I don't like the CG in that, is when it cuts to the like future scene where Paul's fighting the Sardaukar in the desert, and it cuts to the scene where his like facial visor comes up.
Visor comes up. Yeah,
I thought that one looked a little jank, but the rest of it looked amazing, and I really like their attention to detail in this movie.
Like the sandworm quite a bit, but let's type this. So Sean says this shouldn't have been adapted. There's been a lot of discussion I've seen lately between this and Foundation about what they call the unadaptable films, or unadaptable books, I should say. And for a long time, because the Dune 1984, it was cheesy. The 2001 one was confusing and kind of poorly acted. Is this just stuff that shouldn't be adapted? Is there stuff that can't be adapted?
Stories can be told no matter what. It's just you actually have to have somebody who can do it. Like, Star Wars is esoteric and weird as well. But when it's done well and you focus on sort of the human being pieces and not all of the other stuff, like the problem that a lot of people make with adaptations is they forget to ground it in basic human things.
One thing I have noticed in my time watching sci-fi and having read a lot of, like, especially classical sci-fi, like Dune and Hitchhiker's Guide and some other ones, like if you go even further back, like the John Carter stuff, I'm finding that there's a lot of difficulty adapting some of the older sci-fi to the modern day. I don't think it's impossible, but I do definitely feel like there's a little bit of a hurdle they're having a hard time crossing over and keeping it original, or keeping it true to the original source.
So, yes. And so there's two things to this. Is that there's stuff that I respect the adaptation because I think it kept the spirit of the original source, even if it wasn't a direct adaptation, and stuff where they were just like, we want to slap this name on it. And this is really what we want to do. And that really, really bugs me. The first one that comes to mind on that is Starship Troopers. That adaptation has almost nothing to, like, we still have bugs and the main character's name is Johnny Rico, and that's about it.
I kind of feel like that's somewhat to my point. It's an older book. It came out in what, 80 something?
No, that was 65.
Troopers is way back in there.
But I feel like Starship Troopers was like if we have Dune on one end of the spectrum where it's like a 1-to-1 adaptation, and then I think Starship Troopers is the other end of the pendulum because they basically tried to take a book that had been around for a long time, and I think they kind of made it too modern for the time. That they ended up basically just scrapping 90% of the story and just doing a generic sci-fi film out of it.
They made 5 fucking Starship Trooper movies?
Oh, yeah.
Fucking hell!
They kept going.
And they
like
get worse.
Dude, if they make money, if it makes any sort of money,
the first one didn't make money, though.
I think it did. I'm pretty sure it did.
The last 4 were straight to DVD. They were fucking straight to DVD sci-fi nonsense, and they were terrible.
They were straight to thing. It made 121 million,
and the budget was 105 million. You didn't pay very much.
I remember watching one of them on, I think it was on Netflix a few years ago, because I was like, I wonder if this is any good. It was not.
Holy shit! The budget from Starship Troopers in 1997 was 105 million. You know what? You want to guess what the budget for the next film was?
What?
7. That's how much they didn't believe in that movie.
Yeah,
that's basically like somebody getting a 20 on a Friday night and being like, "Don't spend it all in one place."
So again, this is where and BitPlayer made a comment in the chat that I think applies to this, is that, and I actually disagree with BitPlayer, is that from that classic era did not write with the idea that it will be seen visually. I think you could film Starship Troopers. What Verhoeven was doing was trying to make a satire and make a political point, and he literally just used the veneer of what Starship Troopers had on the surface to make that point. It had nothing to do with it. I think you could make Starship Troopers visually. I think you could make Foundation visually. I just think that some of this stuff gets lost in the translation, and I don't know why.
I don't think Starship Troopers could have been made visually in 97. I think they could have tried, but I think it would have ended up being just an absolute shit show. But
no, because they made
Star Wars.
They made Star Wars in the 80s. They made Jurassic Park in the mid-90s. It can be done.
Yeah,
I somewhat disagree with that, because in the book, the mobile infantry are they're wearing basically exosuits and jumping around miles at a jump, and being fired from basically 6-shooter revolvers from space into the atmosphere. Yeah, power armor, basically. Yeah. And let's be honest, they made Star Wars in the prequels are also made around that time, and they also look like shit.
They didn't look as bad as Starship Troopers did, though.
No,
they didn't. And here's the thing: everybody wants to be like the prequels are like crap. I remember when the prequels came out, everybody was super impressed with the prequels.
No, the prequels did not look like crap. The prequels looked good for what they were. The problem was the source material.
Yeah, and again,
the problem
George is a great innovator, but he's a terrible dialogue writer.
Yeah,
I do remember some people complaining that the prequels overused CGI even back then.
But that was them saying that they overuse the CGI, not that it looked bad. They were just like, there's too much.
There's
of
a
it.
difference.
It's like, yeah, and the CGI for what it was at the time was really, really good.
Well, I'm over here trying to think if there's been any other sci-fi movies that really use power armor. And honestly, the only thing I can think of is that Tom Cruise movie, whatever the fuck they're calling it this day, Live, Die, Repeat, or whatever.
Oh yeah, the day after tomorrow, whatever. Yeah,
the day after next Tuesday.
So that actually, ironically, is again another adaptation of a manga.
Well, and I was thinking another. It wasn't really sci-fi, but it's also like a classic that they kind of butchered the hell out of. Was I Am Legend?
Oh yeah. So we're obviously not going to stop Hollywood from adapting things. So like, how do you, Sean, when you're looking at something that's been adapted, how do you try and view it? I'm curious.
You look at it for what it is.
It makes a good point.
What?
Planet of the Apes.
Was that an adaptation?
Pretty sure it was.
So I'm talking about the original, because we know that the movie is a remake of the old movie.
Yeah.
And the stuff. Was the original Planet of the Apes an adaptation? I don't actually know.
I think so. While we're looking up, Mallo, go ahead on your opinion on adaptations. Didn't mean to derail you.
No, I mean, you have to look at them for what they are. There's two different kind of ways of looking at it. I mean, Hollywood has a very distinct line of saying, like, this was adapted from a book or whatever like that, but a screenplay is nothing but a book written in a different format. Like, so to me, when you're looking at something on the screen versus what's on the book, they serve two different things. So you have to judge each individual creative for what they are. You can fall in love with certain things from The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all that kind of stuff, but if you were to have put that in the 18,000 hour version that Peter Jackson released of the first 15 Lord of the Rings, you get bored to fucking death because it's not needed, right? Because a language nerd wrote that book, not a standard person that wants to watch a movie. And if you're good with that, peace. Like, that's fine. But on their own, the Lord of the Rings trilogy as it was in cinema was fucking fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Fan-fucking-tastic. And it was still dense the whole way through. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of have to look at both things. Now, have I ever stopped reading any of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit books or anything like that? Nope. Still love them. You know, still read all through them, you know, from when I was a wee lad all the way up to now. Still fantastic. You know, I think it's one of those things where you've got to take it for what it is and you got to take it at face value as you go. And hope that somebody can be as vibrant, which I think is the problem that a lot of people have when they adapt things from a book to this, is that they have these preconceived notions of how something should look, no matter how descriptive somebody is in the text. I'm looking at the Count of Monte Cristo for this. You know, Alexander Dumas spent 12 pages describing wine. One glass of wine.
Well, yeah, you can. So there you go. There's a so one of my traditions anytime I deployed overseas is I would read a classic piece of literature, and I would do it just to read it, right? So my first one I read Love in the Time of Cholera, and my second one I actually read the entire unabridged Count of Monte Cristo. That thing is like 3,000 pages. It's ridiculous.
It's 1,567 pages.
It's absolutely fucking unfilmable. You couldn't make that a movie. There's whole sections in the middle that are just them talking about other shit that's going on. Not for any particular reason, but just because you might want to know. It's because
back when Alexander Dumas wrote the book, you were fucking bored otherwise. So yeah, why not write it in the book? My teacher, when I first read that, because I read the 1,500 plus page version the first time I read it back in school, and she called me a damn madman for reading that version of it. And I was like, well, it's because it's all right here. Now I can breeze through the fucking thing. Oh, I've got it over here. If you want me to go get it, I'm going to go get it. I'll be right back.
Go get it.
With any adaptation, you're going to have to
see what just happened? Like, chat, just look at it. He's actually going to go get the damn book.
With any adaptation, you're going to have to cut things.
Yes, so again,
you can't fit it all in. Like, it would be impossible. even if you do like full ass like fucking 4-hour Shawshank Redemption releases.
So it's not just about cutting. Is it more important to get the theme? Because here's where I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna fuck with some people. I think that if Isaac Asimov had been alive when the Will Smith I, Robot movie came out, I think he would have loved it. I think he would have said, "This is a great way of interpreting my work."
I feel like that you just stepped on a landmine.
I'm seeing if anybody wants to come for me on this one.
They might.
Okay.
Well,
Because I actually think that while there were points of it, and it was at times clumsily done, and there were some things that I was like, really? Like casting, oh God, Bridget Moynihan as Susan Calvin was a fucking mistake, because she's not Susan Calvin. But the concepts they were trying to explain in that film very much fell in line with the way that Asimov tried to explain those concepts. And so I think if the Will Smith I, Robot, if Asimov had been alive when it was made, I think he would have been like, it's fine. This is exactly how I would have approached it.
well, I think a lot of authors understand that anytime you adapt, like I was saying, you're going to have to cut things. Not everything that's in a book is necessarily going to translate. And I know one of the big issues that they've struggled with Dune is that in the book, there's a lot of internal monologue.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of put that in the 84 adaptation, whatever fucking year it was.
Mm-hmm. They did.
It was weird. Pretty much I personally, anytime I see a character like internal monologuing something, I personally kind of find it weird. From a movie perspective, I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But I generally think most authors, unless it's something like the abomination they made with cats, like I think most writers are probably just happy that their shit's getting turned into a movie.
Did you go? By the way, did you go get the book, Mallo?
Right here. I always know where it's at. Don't worry.
So I have the.
It is 1,461 pages. It is. I can also build houses with several copies of this.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which, while we're on the topic of adaptions, I am terrified what Amazon's going to do with Wheel of Time.
So I'm gonna again step on another landmine by not only saying that iRobot was good, but also by saying I never read the Wheel of Time.
You're not
blame you.
missing anything. Oh,
But,
I mean, what I meant to say.
the audio books, like if you take the Wheel of Time audiobooks, which is arguably one of the faster ways to ingest that series, it has a runtime of 19 days, 5 hours, and 25 minutes to get through.
Is that the whole thing?
That's the whole thing from beginning to end, not including the prequel. 19 days of audiobook to get through that stuff.
Yeah, I think if I started listening to the audio, of the Wheel of Time right now, I might be at retirement age by the time I got through about half of it.
Yeah.
So
I happen to very, very much like the Wheel of Time, but I am fully cognizant that it is a slog to get through. It is it's 14 books.
I have a question though, because it is Sanderson who finished it at least. So and his stuff is usually pretty good. So like, is it better or worse than having to slog through Netflix's Witcher? Because that is unfucking watchable as far as I'm concerned.
I have not seen The Witcher because I hated the games, and I saw one view of those guys with the testicle armor, and I was like, okay, I'm done.
I couldn't even sit down and watch it.
Yeah.
I looked at Henry Cavill with that bad wig. The wig threw me off. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. I was
It is the epitome of we're going to show gratuitous nudity for no reason, really.
Like, they didn't even do it, like, because Game of Thrones did that in their season 1. They used sexposition. Hey, we're going to have some exposition so you understand what's happening, but we're going to have people doing it at the same time so that you'll listen.
Well, I think the thing about that they did with Game of Thrones too is in the first episode, it was Jamie and the bitch doing it, and then just pushing the dude out the window. Spoilers, by the way. That was the shock moment, right? Like,
we're past spoilers.
Yeah. But by the way, I just want to, for comparison's sake, I just want to show that even as wordy as Rothfuss is, because this is my custom name of the wind, even as much as that is still bigger than Rothfuss's tome. So,
but is that Wise Man's Fear? Because Wise Man's Fear was the longer of the two.
No, this is they haven't made a version of this for Wise Man's Fear yet. They've only made the Name of the Wind. So this is not the one I'm actually reading. I'm reading the trade paperback because it's easier to hold. Which I'm almost done with that one, and maybe it'll have a plot soon. I'm waiting for it to have a fucking plot. It would be great to have a plot in that book.
And I have to take the time since we're on the air, and it's been a while since I've done it. Maybe someday you will have Doors of Stone to compare.
It would be great. Well, I started reading the series because I've met Pat a few times. I'm not going to jump on your bones quite like everybody else did, because I've met Pat. I've talked with him several times. I respect the hell out of him as a writer and creator, and I was kind of like, just like Karma, hoping into the wind that if I like started reading it, that Doors of Stone would be announced, and I'd be like, all right, cool, I can power through these 2 books and get to it really quickly. Not yet. Maybe soon, though. Hopefully soon.
I really like Patrick Rothfuss as a writer. I like him as a person because I've seen him talking in interviews and stuff. He does a shit ton of stuff with charity. Really love that about him. But he is the one author that has made it so that I will never start another fantasy novel series until it's finished.
Yeah. My spouse is actually that way too. She won't watch a show until at least season 3 to think that it could have any,
I was current with Wheel of Time when Robert Jordan died, which his
unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah. He developed a blood disorder, and that really caused him to before he died, it really slowed down his release. I'm not blaming him for that. He had medical shit to deal with. That's fine. But it seems like every time I start a new fantasy series that isn't finished, the writer dies or does a Rothfuss, and takes what 11, 12 years now since Wise Man's Fear? Maybe.
Wise Man's Fear was released in 2011. So
10 years.
So about 10 years. Yeah.
So he's not as bad as George R.R. Martin.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to finish the series before.
I firmly believe that, especially since it's been the last Song of Ice and Fire book was released in 2000. Where's it at? It was released in 2011.
It's about the same time.
But it's been 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been working on the next one for 10 years. Railroad Martin has left the rails a long time ago. Probably. I mean,
Rothfuss has even flat out said that he had Doors of Stone done and it was going to be edited. And he said that about 7 years ago.
To answer chat tip, it is on my to-read list. I discovered Ursula K. Le Guin. He's asking about Ursi, which is a 6-book trilogy. And I discovered her recently with a few other ones.
That's one that's on my list to read too.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do a review once that's done and we can catch up on it. The part of the problem, and this is the best problem in the world to have, and also the worst problem in the world to have, because it means we're going to die as a civilization soon. We have a lot of content out there. A lot of books and a lot of content, and not nearly enough time to consume it all.
No, but I don't think it's a bad thing.
Well, it is, because a lot of things are getting greenlit that probably shouldn't, but
that's true.
Should probably have a little bit higher bar than what's out there, but
I think it's partly because Hollywood's just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, right?
I will say, I still say we're in kind of a golden age of television and stuff. The nice thing about stuff like The Mandalorian and things like that is we're getting like some amazing TV and amazing content put out there. The stuff that's top notch is seriously top notch, and I think that you're more likely to get these really good prestige shows on television and do this stuff than you ever were in the old broadcast only days.
That's why I'm vaguely optimistic about the Wheel of Time series. I have my reservations. I'm not going to go out and say it's going to be fantastic, because it could actually be a shit show. But the willingness of studios and audiences to take in this, for lack of a better term, movie quality television shows every week, I think that is the only format that the Wheel of Time could potentially work in. They're going to need a lot of seasons to get through it. But there is no way in hell they would ever adapt that to a movie series, even if they did one movie per book and had 14 movies. They still couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I will always be the person that says, though, that episodic TV released weekly, even through streaming services, is the way to go. I don't like Netflix's just, here you go, binge all weekend kind of mentality with the Squid Game and shit like that. I hate it. I'm an adult. I have things to do. I also a creator, so I can be grumpy about not having enough time to watch my peers. But you know, I like being able to break things down into nice, neat little chunks, because a movie, the length of the Lord of the Rings extended series is just too goddamn long for one sitting. We as humans need to move around.
Yeah. So I'm with you on the weekly release schedules. I'm glad that Disney's holding to that.
Yeah.
I think it was a necessary market move when they first released, and they didn't have that much new content coming out. And now, like, we're gonna roll straight from the Hawkeye show into the Book of Boba Fett.
Yep. It's gonna be fan-fucking-tastic.
And we're gonna get like 3 months worth of like new content weekly. And it looks like it's all going to be high quality content.
Mm-hmm.
Here is where I'm going to surprise literally everyone in this chat, and I'm going to be the contrarian.
Wait. Sorry, who? You?
Yeah.
No.
He's going to say something, y'all. Go ahead and get the clip ready. Get the clips ready.
I don't like episodic releases once a week.
Yeah.
I prefer the massive dump, because then that gives me, and like you, I don't have a lot of time. You guys have tried to schedule shit with me for years now, and
I've given up
all over the place.
Shit show.
But shit show. But I really like having the option and not having to wait for it, because if I find myself with some time and I've already watched that week's episode, I'm at SOL, and then I have to go back and try to catch it later.
You know how you can fix that? You can wait till the end of the season and just watch them all.
That's
it's
what I've done.
It's the same thing.
That's what I've done. And good luck avoiding spoilers for 8 weeks.
That's the downside for Joe's piece. Now, conversely, the upside is, like, you can put the spoiler, like, it's easier to put the spoiler, like, removal button on a show if it's released weekly. Like, I feel like, and this kind of goes back to even the old days when it was just broadcast every week. If you're more than a week behind, you don't get to complain about spoilers.
You can kind of, but there's a lot more technology to get around that nowadays, too.
Yeah.
There is ways to just not avoid certain spoilers.
I disagree.
It's not impossible, but
in this day and age when you have a lot of people that are working 60, 70, 80-hour work weeks, I disagree with that, because some people just don't have time.
People should just not do that.
Well, that's easier said than done.
I know. I'm just being. That's my contrarian piece of it.
Yeah. You're also one to talk, being a small business owner.
Of 2 small businesses, because I'm a dumbass.
Clip that, please, chat. Can somebody clip that for me so I can make that a soundboard?
I'm sitting here rewriting numbers again while I try and write the Mary Highsmith episode. Yes, both of those things happened yesterday.
I think that's the thing, though, that like the where the dump comes in, and I don't like it, because while I agree with Joe that if you're more than a week behind with work schedules and stuff like that kind of shit happens. But if you dump it all at once and everybody wants to talk about it, and you're just gonna get the whole, I never had to watch Squid Game because the weekend after it fucking blew up, I heard about it nonstop at work the next day. And there's no spoiler warning that I can get away from with that kind of thing, right? Because the whole fucking series is spoiled at that point. And so if it's released episodically, then you at least have a chance to get caught up and a chance to like disengage a little bit if you don't want it spoiled for you.
Or you can say in the water cooler talk, you can say, "Hey, I'm only up to episode 3. I'd love to talk to you guys, but I'm only up to episode 3."
Yeah,
if it's released weekly.
And people will mostly be okay with that. If not, maybe you might need to lend out virtual uppercuts if they don't, that's up there with like not respecting the headphones. Like, don't come and talk to me, Karen, while I got my headphones on. I don't want to talk to you. I think the other thing too, for me personally, this is just me personally. If it's released episodically, that's my measure and my bar of whether I actually look forward to seeing it next week. Because if I don't, might as well cut my losses and not keep watching the show. Because if I'm not looking forward to it, then obviously I'm not enjoying it. Like, that's just the way it is, and I have a very hectic schedule. I have a very, very busy life. And it is what it is. So you guys see my Instagram, you know where I'm at at a lot of times. So I don't know. That's just kind of the way it is. Tip, I would say that a lot of people need to allow unions.
Agreed.
But in the way that they are shooting, they have to, because SAG-AFTRA, IATA, the Writers Guild, all of that has to be. There's no way around any of those unions when you're trying to make productions like The Wheel of Time and stuff like that. So, or The Boys, which The Boys is a fantastic series, which I have not caught up with, but it's one of those ones that I will put on the list to catch up with eventually. But again, that's another one where it was like released weekly and it didn't keep I watched it on those are like my plane rides. Like when I'm going to and from set, that's my plane ride.
I tried to watch The Boys and I got most of the way through the first season and then they kind of lost me. I was like, I'm waiting for you to get to the point.
Yeah.
I really like.
I think there's a lot of fronts. Yeah. So what you're saying, Tip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes. True.
I love the fact too, by the way, just to jump in on this one, I love that people are recommending everybody just wait for Eternals on Disney Plus. Like,
so again, it feels like, and the people who I listen to, who I trust, Eternals to me feels like Dune, where I think that the experience is going to be better. I'm not saying it's going to be bad on TV, but it's going to be better in the cinema because of the way that it's shot and the sound design and everything else. So that's probably another one I want to see in the theater. Based on everything I've heard, I don't understand why it's kind of getting crapped on.
Well, and I waited for like the real critics to like jump on. Like, I'm not because it got review bombed because of all the other shit, and that's terrible. So I waited for a larger consensus of people, because a lot of people are basically like, it's a good movie, but is it worth going to the theaters? Or if you already own Disney Plus, probably not.
But see, our friend Ryan has now jumped into the chat, and this is my thing. Everybody I've talked to or I've heard, like, again, that consensus is it's a good movie. How is it getting worse scores than Thor 2? Okay, if it's a good movie, it shouldn't be and that's what I'm saying is that I think that our view of the MCU stuff is so bloody skewed now that if it's not Endgame, it's getting crapped on.
I think it's a much simpler explanation than that.
What do you think?
I have counterpoints to all of that, but I'm gonna let Joe go first because I've been talking a lot.
I honestly think a lot of it has to do with people are stupid these days.
Sure. But I'm talking about the critics, not
one's in chat if you are stupid, please. One's in chat if you are stupid.
And Eternals is a different type of movie than what the average people have come to expect from the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right.
And I really do think that is factoring into a lot of it, because they're wanting another Iron Man, they're wanting another Thor, they're wanting another, Avengers, and it's not any of that. So people are going into it expecting it to be that and are not, and they're getting mad about it because people are fucking dumb today. To quote Men in Black, a person is smart, people are dumb.
Yeah, it's actually a really great quote. I do love that.
And people just get butthurt over the dumbest shit. Like, you can't just enjoy a movie because it's a good movie. If it doesn't fit your preconceived expectations, it's a terrible movie and you hate it.
I love Joe's saltiness right there.
That stupidity crosses over many thresholds in my personal life, and it aggravates the hell out of me.
And I think you're probably right, is that a lot of it is they're not getting what they expect out of an MCU film. And I think that's sad because those same people are complaining that all the MCU films are the same. And this is where I get frustrated with people. Do not, in the same paragraph, gripe to me that all the MCU films are the exact same. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's all the same. And then the minute, and I see this from both critics and fans, the minute they're like, all right, we're going to try something new. We're going to mix it up. You get freaking clowned about it. Don't do that.
Yeah.
If you want them to all be the same and be carbon copy, great. But then don't complain when they don't experiment. And then when they do experiment, you've got to let them try.
People don't know what they actually want. That's the problem. And any designer, any person who deals with creating things publicly for individuals and companies will tell you that people don't know what they want. People make a lot of money out there figuring out ways to translate between what your customer is telling you and what the product's going to end up being. And I think that's where a lot of it breaks down. And I've bitched about this privately before. I think a huge part of the problem we have with the modern cinemascape, both in TV and movies, is everybody wants another goddamn Shawshank Redemption. If it's not at top tier quality,
but
get mad about it. And in the 90s, we had things like Last Action Hero and True Lies and all those other stuff.
Movies.
It's okay for a movie to not be the pinnacle of cinematic art. It can just be fun. Just go and watch it.
I think that's what the problem, though, is that Eternals is not fun. It's
maybe
brooding.
Not, but people were shitting on Transformers, which let me argue. I understand Transformers was kind of a
No. I'm on your side on this Transformers argument.
Stupid movie where it was literally just to drive toy sales again and to get robots on the screen punching each other for an hour, and that's it. Same like the Godzilla movies.
Don't forget America, because in all the Transformers movies there was a heavy dose of America.
And then he just complained about people being stupid. And then he's defending fucking Transformers. Are you fucking serious?
It was a dumb. If you went and bought a Transformers ticket and expected anything other than what it was, you're doing it wrong. That's like going.
I know. I'm just saying they shouldn't have been made to begin with, or at least not with Michael fucking Bay.
This is what I think. I think I'm going to try and translate what Joe's saying, because I think I agree with him, and maybe I can translate what Joe's saying. The stupidity is don't go to Transformers and expect it to be Shawshank. You're going to watch Transformers because for an hour and 45 minutes, you want to watch giant robots punch each other and America. You're not going to these other films looking for this thing. So if you walk into Ant-Man and the Wasp and think it's going to be Schindler's List or Shawshank or one of these other films, you are walking in with stupid expectations, and you are an idiot.
Here's where I counter with that. Nobody is fucking walking into that expecting anything else. But when you go to something as cinematically shot and as deftly put together as the Eternals, and you can see it all the way from how they do the typography, how they're putting everybody together and stuff like that. Yeah, they're expecting something with a little bit more heft, especially since you just got done with Loki, for crying out loud, which had a lot of depth and greatness. And
but that's my thing, is that the stuff that I'm seeing about the Eternals is not that it doesn't have heft to it. The stuff that I'm seeing is that it's not Marvel-y enough.
Well, I'm seeing the exact opposite, is that the story doesn't actually ever come together. That it looks like a DC film. It plays like a DC film.
That's some shade being thrown.
Well, wow. I am, and I will fully judge it as I can watch it on Disney Plus, because I'm not going to go pay other money to go see it. Shang-Chi, on the other fucking hand, looks like it deals with a lot of great stuff. Does have humor, and levity, and it does have some action, but also isn't like slap, slap, slap-a-dee-doo, you know what I'm saying? Like, it does go across the line where it can be a little bit low-key, but it can also be a little Guardians of the Galaxy at the same time, right? Spider-Man movies, same kind of thing. Like, they've got some comedy relief, but then you can deal with some real shit, you know what I'm saying? The Eternals just stands out because of the way that it's being shot and presented. It could have a completely different plot to it, and that's totally fine. But I think when you put that many different unknown superheroes, because the Eternals is a very esoteric story in the comics, for crying out loud.
I know very little about the Eternals in general.
It's a super nerd story. Like, there are levels to all of this.
It came from that like Kirby 1970s psychedelic era of Marvel.
Well, and then you've got everybody, you know, I love to watch other YouTube channels that like to speculate about all the lore and how they weave the MCU versus the comics and things like that. And yeah, when you're starting to, and I'm actually going to connect it to the gaming side of these things, because we have a story after the break about gaming. But it's the same thing that's happening with World of Warcraft. When you go deal with all the godlike figures in the galaxy and what maids and the Big Bang, when you're also dealing with superhuman talking trees, like, none of it makes any fucking sense at that point. And unless you do it really, really, really well, you're going to lose 90% of the people out there. And the 10% of people that you're going to bring along for the ride are probably the ones that would have did it no matter what you did in the first place, right? And so I think that's the difference when you kind of look at the different like layouts of Marvel, is it can get emotional, it can get heft, but there is a point to when you bring together the more esoteric side of Marvel, you're going to have to spend extra time getting people there to it. And introducing themselves and things like that. I was gonna actually just start with somebody in the chat said they didn't like the Black Widow film. They fucked that one up. They should have had that come out correctly on time and everything.
Can we talk about that one after the break too?
We got gaming news after the break too. But yes, I just want to say that I see that in the chat, and I agree because of just the way that it kind of messed up. So.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, because realistically, even in the main MCU stuff, they really did take quite a bit of time building up to what it eventually became. Because, you know, Iron Man 1, 2, and then the original Thor came out before they really got into the formula that we see nowadays. And if Eternals is, like, again, I don't know a whole lot about Eternals, but if it's that esoteric, they really needed to do the same thing with that as like a separate branch. Personally, I was looking forward to Eternals, and I'll watch it. And it sounds like we may need to do one of these streams for Eternals when it comes out. I personally love the whole ancient technology, ancient beings coming, you know, and being actually like high technology back in the olden days. That's one of the things I loved about Dune. Since this is a Dune stream, I'm gonna wrap it back around to that. Visually, I love the way Dune has always presented that the technology in their world is obviously incredibly advanced compared to what we have. It's 8,100 years ahead of ours.
You see that math chat? He did that on the fly.
It's because I watched it earlier today. It's the year 10,131.
Which, by the way, that's still not correct either if you look at the book timeline, but we can keep going.
I love the way they present the technology in Dune, because it's obviously very high technology, but they do it in a way that makes it feel kind of very casual and also very ancient, where it's something that people just have rather than being, oh look, I have a cool thing. We
talked about this while running New World, which we'll talk about in the gaming news section in a minute, but it's you say that it feels ancient. I feel like that it feels lived in, which to connect back to our Blade Runner comments and how that all connects to Dune and stuff like that world felt lived in as well, even though we still didn't really get a lot of the scenery as much with that. We didn't get a lot of the backstory, which I think we really need to get like 4 more like Blade Runner style movies to get like, how the hell did we get here kind of thing, right? But so I think that's kind of the thing too, is that they do a really good job in that movie making it feel like it's lived in and that it's real, even though it's made up space technology. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. A good example of that is if you're watching a movie, pay close attention to the navigator ship, the shots they show of it. Like, their ship is obviously this massive thing, like Death Star sized, but it looks weathered and beat up and old.
Yep. We got Death Star, and we got more coming up after the break. So we're gonna go take a quick bio break. Y'all hang tight. I'm gonna run some ads so we can pay some bills, and we'll be back in here in just like 5 minutes. Okay. We'll see you in a sec. Saying it's tired. But pain reminds us what is worth fighting for. It reminds us to overcome the obstacles before us. Pain is temporary, but greatness is forever. Oh, hello. Welcome back.
Hey.
I guess I didn't have desktop audio on that whole time for that. So it was a very silent, back screen, so. Reading back on chat, Blade Runner 2049 had animated shorts to help out. That is a whole different issue of if you need to watch animated shorts to get the damn main story, then we have a problem.
Yeah, and so you could make that same argument about the Matrix, because and I actually liked the Animatrix, all the shorts they had that kind of showed how the machines took over and all that stuff. That was great, but I'm kind of with Sean. If you need it, it's a problem.
I kind of feel like the Matrix didn't need that specifically. It was just kind of a bonus.
Yeah, no, that's why I liked that whole series, because I thought it was a good bonus. I thought it was great to have the extra detail there. But if you needed it, which I feel like, yeah, that's where the problem really kind of comes into. So,
Blade Runner 2049 was, God, how do I want to put this? It was a very well shot film. I thought it was a great movie. It suffered from, it should have been made 20 years earlier. And it took itself just this much too seriously. Like, the original Blade Runner was cool and experimental and all that stuff, but it wasn't trying. It was like Blade Runner was able to be cool without trying to be cool, whereas Blade Runner 2049 was trying to be that angsty guy in class who's telling you he's deep.
Well, I kind of wonder, which I know this is all available online. I've just been too lazy to go find out. I've always kind of wondered if the original Blade Runner was as big of a hit as we think it is now in retrospect, because there's been a lot of movies that came out that kind of were shit in the box office and ended up being a cult classic, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how that factors in. But Blade Runner 2049, I think for me, I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't really think it was that bad of a movie. I do think there were some definite plot points they could have removed. I kind of feel like they dove a little too deep into, is Kay really a human being or not? A little too much.
So,
and I kind of felt like they could have left the Deckard Cain part of it out. No, don't get me wrong. I love seeing Harrison Ford back as Deckard Cain. I just don't think it was necessary to the plot.
So to answer your first question, I just looked. The original Blade Runner was a commercial flop until later. Right. It was one of those that it picked up in DVD sales and re-releases and stuff like that. The original one did $41.5 million on a $30 million budget.
So that's what I thought I remembered hearing about it, but I hadn't confirmed that enough.
It was not a commercial success when it released. Also an adaptation that, if you've ever read the book it was based on, you're like, wow, you really just took 3 concepts from that book and nothing else. That was it. By the way, don't be in a bad mental space and read the book that it was based on, because it will make it worse. I'm dead serious. It is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is the book that Blade Runner is based on, is a supremely depressing book. It will make you sad. It's rough.
Cyberpunk is so known for his happy themes.
But for what it is, because Dick does other cyberpunk stuff that isn't just straight up fucking depressing. Where you're just wow, I kind of want to just go away now. It was it was bad.
That's how I felt when I was forced to watch Brazil. Gilliam, how you pronounce his last name? I did not walk out of that film in a positive mental state. Not because I don't think necessarily because the story itself was depressing, which it kind of was, but not really. It's just that was one of those films that I'm just why was this made? Who spent money on this?
There was a lot of that in the 80s, though.
There's a lot of that now.
a dystopian film.
Sean and I frequently comment, we're like, how does this stuff get greenlit? And how have they not made an Identico show yet?
Well, apparently Brazil is like it's also like one of those ones, it's a cult classic. Everyone thinks you need to see it, and I'm just like, it was dumb. I kind of wish I'd had that time back.
I mean, it's like reading 1984 and stuff. I mean, it's meant to have some impact on it, but 1984 is a fucking depressing ass book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so is Brave New World. Like, Catch-22. Like, these are
Fahrenheit 451. Yeah.
Depressing books. Yeah. So it's don't read it if you want to have a heavy drinking weekend. Let's put it that way.
No, don't do that.
So, let's talk about some games. In other depressing news, we had a whole slate of great news today. That would have been if you like Animal Crossing, because Animal Crossing like 2.0 came out today, which is fantastic.
My wife and daughter are going to be thrilled about that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Everybody can go like repair their dilapidated islands that they haven't used in a year and get sassed by the island residents for not being around, because there's some sassy pieces of you know what there.
Do you know what? Go ahead.
I've only ever played Animal Crossing one time.
Okay.
And that was when Ella went to go take a shower, and she left her DS on, and I went into her world, and I used the shovel tool to write butts.
You would.
That's the extent of my Animal Crossing knowledge.
The credit that I give Nintendo and this relates to Animal Crossing is that when they release a game, it's done. Like, you're never going to see a Cyberpunk 2077 issue out of Nintendo. It will not happen. Their games have a lot of polish, and I really, really love that about them. And the way they've been releasing their DLC, the way they do their events for Animal Crossing, I think it's good. It's good work on their part.
I believe so. Yeah, it's fairly polished, if not underwhelming, because none of their consoles will ever set the world on fire, and none of their games will ever really set the world on fire anymore.
But I don't think that's their concept anymore. I don't think that's what Nintendo wants to do. They're profitable. They make money. Yeah. I think they just don't care anymore. I think they like being. I think they like being that cult thingy, right? They like having Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, Animal Crossing, and those games that everybody's going to buy a Switch for those games. Everybody that buys one. And they're going to be great games, and that's it. And they don't care about competing with Xbox or PlayStation.
I think you're pretty spot on about that, but I think it's necessary just because they are a cult classic at this point. Like, everyone knows Nintendo. It's also because, as is true with most Japanese companies, Nintendo has a huge array of products that a lot of people don't even know about. So they have entire other sectors to prop up the game side if it tends to go south.
I mean, they just released Metroid Dread too, which was, I guess, a game. It's okay.
I agree Nintendo has some pretty solid polish, but can we talk about how in Breath of the Wild their durability system on their weapons was fucking garbage?
Yes, we haven't gone a couple weeks without you saying that. Yes. Don't worry, Breath of the Wild 2 will come in 2025, and you can then have even more durability systems.
I look forward to breaking a brand new sword in a single fight.
Yep, that seems to be about the nature of it.
If you think the durability in New World's bad, just wait.
Play Breath of the Wild.
I have some grumps when we get to the New World portion of the discussion.
You got something on Activision Blizzard before we get him started on New World?
I don't know which one's gonna be saltier, Activision Blizzard or New World at this point.
Probably.
I've thought Activision was a garbage-ass scum company for probably over a decade now, so nothing that they say or do could surprise me at this point.
So, on the heels of all the sexual harassment and discrimination and retaliation and all of the other lawsuits that are going right now terribly because of legal maneuvers and things like that, there were two people put in charge of Blizzard Entertainment. I'm going to poorly pronounce this guy's name, but I think it's Michael Ybarra, I think is how you pronounce it. Ybarra. And Jen O'Neill. And today, Jen O'Neill left. So we're back to having a white dude run the company. Good job, Blizzard. Fantastic work. She left to go.
3 months.
Yeah, she left after 3 months to go take a non-profit role with Women in Games International. So if to me that does not signal that some shit is about to happen, I don't know what does. Because if you are in charge of a very large, if not still profitable company, and you go take a non-profit role, while important, like I think it's an important role, that screams something to me, that nothing is actually changing at Blizzard-Activision.
It could also be that because there was some scuttlebutt. I don't know how confirmed it was, but there was some scuttlebutt that they were going to be closing Blizzard and shifting all their assets to a new company that they're going to spin up. I wonder if maybe she just didn't want to be a part of that, because that's a pretty monumental task, taking a much beloved company that's been around since the 80s and killing it and making it over again. I don't know if I would want to have my hands on that reign.
Well, when you're an executive, those kind of things happen. And, it's kind of part and parcel,
To me, it's the 3 months, right?
Yeah.
Like, the general rule for executive staff is they're going to give you a year to not screw up, right? Like, you pretty much are guaranteed you're going to get a year. So this is not a situation where they ask her to leave. Like, and if you're an executive and left after 3 months, like, and these people don't just take jobs willy-nilly. This is not one of those ones where she was like, I took a job as a project manager here, and then, a headhunter grabbed me 3 months in, and I got paid $20,000 a year more to go here. These are executives. I mean, that's...
Could also be that she accepted the job with some caveats that were not met, and she decided to just cut her losses.
It could be. There could be. There's a lot of things, but I mean, it really does signal a few additional red flags. To me, because they are replacing J. Allen Brack, who was 15 years in. I don't know how many of those years were at Blizzard. A long time. And then there was Mike Morhaime, who was president of Blizzard for a long time. I think he was there during the whole merger with Activision and stuff. I could be getting the timeline a little mixed up there, but it's, I don't know, it is odd to say the least. And it hasn't really helped that the same day that happened, they announced that both Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 are going to be now delayed till 2023, most likely.
Probably longer, but...
So that means at best they could have a World of Warcraft expansion out next year, but right now patch 9.1.5 I don't think has. I'm gonna look it up.
They had announced that they were going to maintenance only mode for a while.
The release date is what I'm looking for. Maybe it's actually out now.
I think it's the fact that they are putting those two on hold that makes me think that they're about to plan a major shift in the company.
Well, it sounds like they need it from all the things. I just don't think it's going to go in the right direction.
Well, I mean, at this point, I feel like they are kind of put into a corner. Like, I really don't know that they're going to be able to salvage the Blizzard name at this point.
You can't name a company. I challenge the chat. I challenge anybody who's watching this later on YouTube, do it in the comments, hit me on Twitter. Name a company as big as Activision Blizzard that when they get to this point are able to make a significant pivot. Because I can't...
What, with this much corporate issues?
Yeah.
Because there's only one person at the top right now that can actually do anything about it, and he ain't doing shit.
What I'm saying is that in the history of corporations, I can't think...
Just so like that tip came through.
Tip comes through with Disney. I'm going to say Disney was not in the...
Microsoft?
In the brand. No.
Yep.
Microsoft. See, Microsoft managed to make the DOJ antitrust stuff make it look like the U.S. government was attacking them unfairly. And in the end, Microsoft won. Right?
I don't think that's entirely what he's talking about. Yes, that is one of it, but Microsoft has had a legit pure amount of issues that go up and down the spectrum with it. And I look at Blue Origin right now, it's having the same issues. Right?
So I don't think Microsoft's dirty laundry has been aired to the level of Blizzard's now. Like, Microsoft never got sued by the EEOC, right? Like, it never happened. Disney,
inaccurate, actually. Microsoft is one of the main reasons why contractors, at least in the state of Washington, if not in California, stuff like that, can only work a certain amount of time without being offered a full-time position and rolled off, because they were, and maybe still are, I'm not there, but abuse the fuck out of having a contractor role where they don't have to pay for any other living wages or anything like that. So
work with
yes,
those people.
They have had their problems. Bill owns the laundromat.
Bill,
damn, son.
Well, I don't know that it's impossible for Blizzard to salvage their company culturally, internal culture-wise. I think they could.
I'm saying their brand is trash.
But their brand is toast. I mean, personally, I'll say their brand was toast as soon as they merged with Activision, because I remember that happening, and most people were kind of angry about it at the time.
I'd be curious what you're referring to with Disney. I know Disney's had some dips. They definitely have.
Are we talking about whether or not they've been able to fix their work culture? Because if that's
fix their brand, like, Disney's brand has never really been like.
Disney's been pretty widely known to be horrifically sexist, anti-Semitic, and have Nazi leanings. So
that was Disney himself, yes.
Yeah.
And by extension, his company. Like, they have deleted the entire Briar Rabbit from their catalog because it's racist as fuck.
Oh yeah, well that's why they're changing Splash Mountain. It's no longer Song of the South. They're going to Princess and the Frog, which is great, actually.
I feel like Disney has managed to turn that around. I mean, I don't know what it's like working for Disney these days, but
I don't think they've had to do it in this era of social media and stuff like that.
No, that's actually inaccurate. Pixar, Latner, they had that issue with Latner, and they had to get him out. So yes.
But see, that was the difference, is that they got Latner out, right? Like, I don't think Activision has done enough to clear up the top.
Oh no, Kotick should have been let go a decade or two ago.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Is quite literally scum.
Like, even the Raiders got rid of Gruden. Like, some emails from 10 years ago leaked.
True.
And the Raiders were like, all right, we love you, Gruden. John, get the fuck out. Right? Like, that's the answer, right? If you are a smart company like Pixar, if you're a smart organization like the Raiders, that shit happens, you're like, you're done. Sorry, you gotta go.
Yeah.
My still one of my hugest overall questions, and I think I have only been able to answer it internally in my own mind. How much did Metzen and Kaplan know about it?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's highly likely that in a corporate culture like that, they probably knew.
Well, they were also pretty highly placed at the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's pure speculation on our part, but I mean, it's probably a safe bet.
I will say, from my previous megacorp culture stuff, anytime stuff like that's going on, the managers and executive staff who are affiliated will know, because they'll be drug into those meetings, right? I don't even think it's heavily speculated. I mean, it is speculation, but I can't see a world where they didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I want to know if I should be mad at Kaplan and Metzen at this point.
Yes.
I mean, because it's entirely possible. From what I've understood, is Metzen and Kaplan both had their own semi-independent teams within the company. And so, in an ideal world, maybe it's possible that their teams were not run that way, and that's part of the reason why they left. I don't know.
It is entirely possible. I think this is where you need to be cautious and wait for any evidence that would, like, not drag their name into this particular one. But I think it is safe to say that they at least, like, they may have known about it. Now, whether they could have done anything about it, given the culture,
my next
is the other sort of thing, right? Like, I think that is where the two things kind of do. Whether they actively took a part in it or whatever like that, they're not part of any of the lawsuits as far as I know, at least that I've read so far. But if they had known about it or whatever is a totally different story. Now, complicity has its own issues, and you got to deal with that, you know, on your own personal kind of feelings. But, you know, it's just the dumbest thing I've seen in a very long time with all of this, and it's not even trying to hide it anymore. It's, you know, and with the delay in Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2, I mean, it's at this point in time, Blizzard stock is at its lowest it's been in a very long time.
I just actually went to go look at Activision stock, and it has had a big dip.
Yeah,
I mean,
And even if I go year to date,
it's down 23.
We've done it before on this podcast, but can we just, as a podcast, beseech these companies just stop being dicks to people?
Oh yeah, no, we
just stop ruining things for us. It's not that hard.
Stop ruining things for us, for everybody else. Like, can we do that, please? That'd be great. Thanks.
I was really looking forward to Overwatch 2, and now I don't think I can buy it. I have uninstalled the first Overwatch. I've uninstalled their entire Battle.net.
Yeah.
It hurts me deeply that I'm not able to play the Diablo 2 remaster. Because
I was just doing a replay of StarCraft 2 too.
You were, actually.
I know, and I'm upset because I love StarCraft.
Stop ruining things for people.
Well, it's not just...
yeah, go ahead.
It's not just that. It's... And this is something we try and deal with in Identico, and I think that we'll probably continue to deal with, and it's difficult to write about, is what is it about your corporate culture that makes you think this is okay? It's not about ruining it for the fans as much to me as it's why would you want to have a workplace that functioned this way for as long as, if you've all read the California court papers, right, for as long as it has, right? Like, this is not new. This was not something that happened over a period of like 6 to 9 months. This was a company culture and a system and everything else that was going on for years and years and years and years. And y'all just were like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Like, where do you not ethically and morally go, we can't fucking do this? Like, it's not okay. Does that make sense?
There was a joke on Reddit that came out about the time this was all breaking that cracked me up, and I still think about it whenever this gets brought up. Is one of the things that was described in this whole situation was they had a frat boy mentality about working there. And the comment was, why are these people acting like frat boys? Every single one of these assholes were nerds in college. They were frats.
Oh, I can absolutely tell you why. Oh, that's always made sense.
Because they got a modicum of power?
Bingo. Because, see, these guys weren't the guys that got into frats, right? And so now that they're in this position where they feel that modicum of power, they feel that cultural, like, significance in their own minds and in their peers, that's what happens. You see it in the military, you see it in corporate culture, you see it with a lot of these people. It makes a lot of sense to me because I've watched it, and it's horrible. Oh, yeah. Toxic masculinity, it's a thing.
It's
right?
The nature of human beings, but it also it's one of the things that makes me believe that whatever being or cosmic processes design human beings obviously did not do any QA, because that's fucking bullshit.
No, this is primarily, in my opinion,
I think Joe subscribes to Tip's human malware.
Yeah, thought it's a Western and it's a American and Western European mentality, and
well, it's not just limited to that.
Oh, I'm saying, like, it manifests differently in other cultures, but this is very much a, like, it's the same motherfuckers who were gatekept and put upon because they played D&D back in the 80s and 90s, who act like clowns now, right? Who want to gatekeep people out of their hobby and want to be like, well, you're a new, you know, like, you are doing the same thing that was done to you because now you're the cool, like, it's the same crap. It's just crap.
I think that's just also just a general human thing, because that is definitely not limited to just Western people, because, I mean, Japan to this day is still incredibly sexist. Like, that's one of the things.
But I'm saying it's different. It doesn't manifest the same way.
I mean, at the high level,
men specifically.
At the high level, I think what Joe's saying is it's still the same concept, and I have friends who are working over in Japan and stuff like that who are women and are actually working in the fashion industry too. You know, and it is very much, you know, it is very much a sexist culture even over there when it comes to it. So, I think the thing is that the headline is that it's a problem in many parts of the world that should be fixed. As one can fix that sort of thing.
No,
the headline is the human race is a garbage people and we need to do better.
It's absolutely 100% toxic masculinity.
Well, that's what I mean by fixing, Joe. But yes, I'm with you, buddy.
Yeah. Like y'all need to get over yourselves.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing about it is a lot of people. Power is a weird thing because you've always heard of the prince and pauper kind of style, or heavy is the head that wears the crown and all this kind of stuff. Like, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. And I'm gonna shout out something that is not nerd related, but it's, you know, just yesterday, Zillow announced their earnings calls and are gonna just up and fire 2,000 people over the next few months.
Oh, I saw that.
And
yeah, they're shutting down that whole division.
Yeah. And that is just the dumbest, most piss poor management that I've ever seen in my entire life. And I know, you know, I have people in all of the tech industry up here, so I apologize if I am offending anybody who might still be defending anybody over there who made that decision. Because you done fucked up on a magnitude that 2,000 people around the holidays at this point. Like, they didn't necessarily announce when all of those people are going to get fired, but around the holidays is basically going to get let go.
So another friend of ours was talking about how a company she works for, I don't want to name names in case that was potentially confidential information, was going to be basically cutting people's pay despite pulling down something like 10 to 20 billion.
Oh, you mean Amazon?
No.
Oh, because they did that too. Record profits all during the pandemic, but some people got pay cuts and most people didn't get any pay raises to go along with all the stuff they had at home.
Again, garbage species.
Yep.
Need to do better.
And Amazon actually is going to miss Q4 earnings because they're going to input more into the workforce, I believe is how they put it, or something like that. So, of course, the stock market didn't like that because it's not wringing every little cent out of everything. So, it's dumb. And so,
can we just go up and say that capitalism is human malware?
I think it's a construct of the human malware, but I think it's the point that I was sort of getting at is that power is an illusion that you only tell yourself to try to make yourself feel good because of bad self-esteem. It has nothing to do with your ability to actually create anything, manage people, create and give anything to society. Like, that means nothing, because if you have what's called servant-based leadership, which is the understanding of, like, if you're in power, you don't actually have any power. You're just managing people, so you got to help them, right? You got to help them do better for what they need to do, and thus everyone gets to be successful.
Are you trying to tell me that if I become a manager, my job is not to make sure everybody looks up to me and worships at my feet?
No, that's. I'm sorry, that would be doing it wrong. It's a shame, right?
Well, I had some shit experiences.
Well, I think that actually goes for all of us and probably everybody on the stream too.
Yeah.
But that's sort of the thing is, like, you know, to be actually, you know, there's no such thing as power. There's also no such thing as, like, leaders are not given a job. Leaders are chosen by the people that they lead, because the people who want them to lead, because they look at them and they know that they can rely on them. If you're given a title and nobody believes in you, then you're just a bullshit manager and you probably aren't going to be very successful. Just plain and simple. There's your management tip 101 tonight for it. Don't be a dick.
Seriously.
And if you're a manager, you have to work that much harder because you got to work for your people, not against them. Mm-hmm. So, all that to say is Blizzard-Activision's Blizzard Entertainment stock is tanked. It is not doing well. There's a lot of red flags still.
It's at its lowest point in 18 months.
Yeah.
I went to go look at the thing, and so it hasn't been this low since April of 2020, when everybody's shit took a dump during the early parts of the pandemic.
Can I just take a brief aside here and say I'm far too immersed in meme culture these days, because I literally went to go look for it and I actually wrote Blizzard stonk. Luckily Google can translate meme and got me in the right place, but
Google speaks meme.
Yes. All right. So what's your New World news?
I mean, what isn't New World news? There is gold duping. There are chat exploits. There was a time this week that none of us could actually log onto the servers because they were having to hotfix so many things. There are, I play as a mage. I can't actually hit shit with my fireball, and it's not just because I'm a terrible aim. It's because the damn thing goes through enemies. In a game that is PvP based, that is a bad thing.
Did you see the thing where they shut down, for those of you who don't play New World, they shut down in-game currency transfers basically across the board to prevent, because there was some exploits people could do to get infinite gold. I saw an article came out that about 3 or 4 hours after they did that, where a group had figured out how to do it anyway during the time whenever they weren't supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Here's my question. So, we on this stream have all enjoyed playing New World. I feel like I've gotten my money out of New World. It's only $40, and I've put basically about 40 hours into it now. That's kind of my metric for games like this. With the issues that New World is having, and I know we had huge server stuff, we had a big launch move. You know, we've all been on there since the launch. Mallo, you were on there since the beta, but everything's been on launch.
Since the alpha, actually.
Yeah, and we've had some WoW refugees come over. What is your opinion on the long term, and I'm talking 9 to 18 months, viability of New World?
It depends.
With the issues they've had, and you know how the MMO crowd is.
Well, I've played a ton of MMOs, and even up to recent Shadowlands patch, I was trying to get everybody back into WoW before the whole thing went to terribly.
Crap.
So I would say this is I think there's good bones there. I think that the core concept of PvP, now they have announced that they're doing a ton of changes to PvP. To actually make people want to play PvP, because the game, if for those who don't know, you know, New World was originally designed to be a PvP only game. Like, that was the whole point of it. You would go do quests and stuff like that to gain gear, but you had to basically be flagged for PvP the whole time. And through the alphas and betas and things like that, it changed over to have both PvP and PvE. So, you know, folks like Joe could, you know, quest when they wanted to, and then we can go defend a fort when we want to.
I would say I have spent 98% of my time in New World in PvE mode.
Yeah, and it's
because I'm just doing stuff.
Yeah, well, and it's the chill way to be. Because if I want to go and we did this the other night. There was a poor guy in Everfall that was fishing, and the four of us. We were running PvP missions because we were trying to get somebody up so they could go do the next level of whatever it is we got to do to gain standing and advance the game. And they were flagged for PvP, and so were we. And they had, by the time he realized my fireball was going to hit him in the back of the head, it was too late for him. So it was an unfortunate time because all he was doing was sitting there fishing. Like,
you're just griefing people, man.
It was in my way to get back to town, like, because if you die,
he attack you though.
Well, no, but he's flagged. He's flagged.
If you have your flag on and you walk out of a town, that's tacit approval that you're probably gonna get ganked.
Yeah, and that's why you never run PvP by yourself either. Like,
so anyway, you were saying changes they're gonna make, things like that.
I think it's the PvP changes that they're gonna make, and then there is, you know, we've seen some leaks about what the new map could look like. And
I've seen this leak shit.
Yeah, there's some leaks about what the larger map, because if you notice, there's roads going off all the top of it and stuff like that. If you zoom in on the map, you can see it. And so there's more than the Shattered Mountain that's at least been thought of. Whether it's been in development and stuff like that, I don't know, because I imagine a lot of people are doing fixes to the game and stuff like that. Overall, I think the game has an interesting idea. I think the story is non-existent for the most part, unfortunately.
I think you have to read all those damn journal entries to get it.
Well, it's very so it's like Destiny. I don't know the fucking story of Destiny 2. I have no idea what that story is.
And things are there and we're killing them.
Exactly.
Aliens.
Well, and that's sort of the thing. It's like, here's all these different alien factions. You've got a gun. Go that way. And here's a cool mount to do it. And shoot things, right? That's Destiny. New World is that, but with swords and a musket. So it's a little slower pace than Destiny. But it's the same thing. I don't know the story of Halo, for crying out loud, because it doesn't make any damn sense either. Like, and because it's like, here's the thing.
I mean, Halo, they kind of cram it down your throat.
I guess so, but I only played Halo for the multiplayer because that was the fun part of the game for me.
There's no story there.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really care. I mean, I tried to play the story one time. It was, nah.
Do you think New World has viability past the 9 to 18 month mark? Do you think people are going to stay and play? Because you know as well as I do that a strong MMO has to have a reasonably strong player base to stay alive.
Well, it's that, and I think there is enough systems in New World to keep people there, assuming they can balance and fix them, which is a big if, because it was kind of a monumental undertaking for them to fix some of the things they've already done. But I think there's enough systems and enough reason to be in there. Hell, people still were playing Final Fantasy 14, and they only got a big influx because WoW shit the bed.
Well,
and it was still
now,
around.
To be fair, Square kept new endgame style content coming to Final Fantasy 14 on a fairly reasonably regular schedule.
Well, that's going to
define
be
fairly
true for
reasonable
any
schedule for Sony, because that was not the case.
Well, and I'm saying like for Sony, but like take SWTOR. At SWTOR, in my opinion, they lasted about. I mean, the servers were up for a long time. But one of the early complaints was once you got through the initial endgame content, it took them like 6 months to get anything else out.
That's quick though, for in-game content.
Kind of worms there, buddy.
My point is, and SWTOR lasted. You know, I think they. In fact, I think they're still up.
Yeah, they're still up.
Technically. I mean, I'd say it was a strong-ish MMO for 2 years.
Nope. I say that, and this is not just going to be.
And I'm saying player base, number of people playing, it was running.
This is not going to be just a shit on SWTOR comment thread here.
Okay. I don't believe you, but go ahead.
So to me, New World right now is the state that is in the same neighborhood that SWTOR was at about 6 months.
Okay, and that's why I'm asking this question, because I don't disagree.
The problem that what New World is going to have to do, and please temper this with the idea that I think a lot of these people that are shitting on New World are a bunch of prima donnas who need to chill their fucking asses, because it's a brand spanking new game from a newish studio and a new IP. There's gonna be bugs, there's gonna be hiccups. Yes, they've had a lot of development time in betas and so forth. That betas only ever capture a very small segment of their actual in-player base. So take all that with a grain of salt. People need to just calm down and just let them do their thing without getting worked up into hysterics. And I've gone to the New World forums. They're already in full-on hysterics over there. And I just let's hit the brakes. It's been out for a month. Like a month and some change, something like that.
I don't know. I think you're right. Okay.
The thing they are going to have to watch out for is if you go back historically and look at what SWTOR did in the first year to year and a half, don't do any of that.
So what specifically are you talking about there?
SWTOR's biggest sins in the time frame when it happened was the biggest one of all was they did not, and they flat out refused for a long time to allow server transfers.
Okay.
The server I was on, I forget the name of it, but the server I was on, you know how you would go to like the main quest hubs, the space stations back then? I don't know if that's the same nowadays, but that's what it was back then. My server personally went from having about 2,000-ish people online when it first came out up until about the first 8 months. And then within about a year, whenever I would log in and be in those areas, one day I went and I logged in, there were 20.
Okay.
There was one guild on the entire Imperial side of the server that had enough people to do any of the dungeons. and they forced people out and refused to let people in unless you met some kind of like draconian metric to join their guild. So for about by the time I got to the max cap and I was able to do raids and stuff, because I played that one kind of slowly, there was no option for me to do that because I was not part of that guild.
So I will say the server I was on, first 18 months of SWTOR, I did not have that issue at all.
There were a lot of servers that did have that issue.
And I believe, and they should have allowed the server transfers. I'm less worried about on that side, the server transfer stuff like that. But
no, that's going to be a critical thing coming up soon for New World.
I understand, but what I'm saying is that from a content and gameplay perspective,
the other secondary issue was SWTOR was very slow at releasing new content.
That's true.
The one major content patch they came out with in the time that I was playing it was the Starfighter update.
Okay, so before that, they had the first and second expansions, which pushed the level caps and added the 2 new planets.
I don't think you're remembering that right, because I did not level up higher than I was before I started the Starfighter stuff. I think we might have lost Woody. He's stalled out.
No, he's just he's sitting there thinking in hard repose now because you're challenging his SWTOR knowledge.
But the other secondary issue, and this does not have anything to do with
okay, now we lost Woody.
Specific, is basically SWTOR tried, and this is, I know this is kind of a firebrand opinion, but I really feel strongly about it. They robbed their player base. Like full stop, because when I bought the game, I think I bought, if I remember right, they did kind of like a tiered pre-order kind of thing, and I think I was somewhere in the middle. But then they switched it over to a free-to-play model, and then basically were like, yeah, so all the people who played the game, even though we said we were never going to do that, yeah, you're fucked, you're just not getting anything. And then the fan base just went apeshit about that, and then they finally were like, "Oh, okay, well, here's some tidbits."
No, so and again, actually, I will say they did some stupid things with that transition, but the fan base that went bananas on it, a lot of them were complaining about things that just they had no reason to complain about. Because I remember when that transition happened to the free-to-play model, and I was like, the free-to-play model is there to sub. That's all it's there. Because half the shit that you want to do in that game, you couldn't do in the free-to-play model.
Well, that's not what most people were angry about. What most people were angry about was when you're right on the expansions things, because the Hut Cartel was the first expansion that came out. The Hut Cartel expansion.
Yep.
That's where people got really angry with them, because the Hut Cartel was like, I think it's like $30, something like that. It was like it wasn't like a full priced expansion, but it was still a decent chunk of change being spent. And they said at the time when it came out that it would never be free. There are posts, you can go find it. They said that expansion would never be free.
Right.
And then 6 months later, they're like, oh, it's free now. So it pissed off a lot of people, and I don't think New World is going to have that problem.
I guess I can't. And then I think the Gree expansion was free.
The main issue that New World, to get back on the New World topic, so I'm not just continually
let's go back to there.
On SWTOR. The main problem that New World's going to have to deal with is they have to be reactive. They have to be quick. SWTOR eventually allowed server transfers, but it was about 6 to 8 months too late. Server populations are dying off in New World, which to be honest, is expected. Any new game, any new MMO is going to see a spike of players, and it's going to slowly dwindle and stabilize over time. I'm not that worried about that. But our server went from a high population marker to, I looked yesterday, it's a medium population marker now. Some of that may be just people switching servers to be with their friends and are still playing elsewhere, but still, it could be a potential problem. If server populations continue to drop, they need to be reactive, or proactive, not reactive, with allowing people to congregate, because the world does not work if you don't have enough population. The second issue they need to get and tackle is they need to push out, probably in the next couple months, they need to push out kind of a mini update, even if it's just like, hey, there's a couple new weapons and maybe like a new outpost rush map, just something basic. Because one of the chief complaints right now is that there's not much to do at level 60, which I can totally see. That's why I'm not in a particular rush to get to 60. You can do wars. You can do invasions, you can do outpost rush, but what else is there?
Well, wars, you get the problem with wars is you have to get chosen, and it's dependent on who is running that whole thing. So you basically
that's not Twitch or Amazon. That's a player somewhere.
Yeah,
in the
no,
server.
it's like EVO Online. It's so completely, utterly player based.
Okay.
And so,
but it's already starting to cause a cliquish mentality.
Well, welcome to MMOs, right? Like that's just the way that those things work.
But I think it gets to Joe's point, which is if company A is saying, hey, these are the only people we'll let play wars, when you get to 60 and there's nothing else to do, that's going to hurt your player base.
Well, but I think that's sort of the problem that I have with the war mentality at the moment. And one of the things that I love about on our server, if you'd like to take down the purples, yellow team, we're happy to sign up and help you. Because as the green team, we can do that. Because that's the thing we can do. Because you don't necessarily, so long as it's not trying to help out one side or the other, you can get anybody you want in the thing. But the outpost rush, the 20v20 stuff, which is kind of neat, and coming up with new islands and stuff like that for the PvP portion, I think is a really easy way for them to add content there. And then there is still been a lot of talk about the blunderbuss coming and a few other weapons and stuff like that could be really good for the game. So I think there's a possibility there. They just got to get through this first month of like issues.
Well, I think one of the other, I just was reminded of it. I think one of the other issues they're going to have to address is how guilds earn money. Because right now it basically is entirely from taxes that are done in the towns that they own, or through individuals can donate money to it. But just out of curiosity, I've heard one of our friends might talk about how a lot of the green groups have a strategy where they want to take over the profitable areas of the map, which is fine. But out of curiosity, I looked, and in Everfall, they were pulling down, because if you go to the governor's desk, you can look and see how much they've earned over the last period, which I believe is a week. It might be 5 days, but I don't remember. Everfall at the time had a rate of over 200,000 gold, and that's been pretty consistent since the game started, since people were able to get it. I went up to Morningdale. That poor place was, in the same period, that poor place only pulled down 2,417 gold.
That's because there's a lot of people that haven't made it up to that high, or they don't care to be in a place where they have to constantly, like if you're a high level, because I'm near 60, and if you're a high level and all you want to do is grind your tokens and stuff like that to get the faction gear, like am I going to go back to Windsward where I can run around either ignoring and or one-shotting everything, or do I want to go to Morningdale where I actually have to sit there and deal with gear durability and actual fights to farm that kind of stuff? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think it also has to do with the geographic location, because we've said Everfall is the most hotly contested one on our server because it's the central one.
Yeah.
Everybody wants it. No one wants to go out to Morningdale to do their shit.
Ebonscale, if the map is correct, Ebonscale will actually be the true center at the higher levels later on in the game. So, I will say to your point about being reactive, though, is I feel like Amazon's done, and this is not me just blowing smoke, but I feel like they've done a pretty good job trying to be reactive to this.
But I think they need to be proactive.
Well, it's hard to be proactive when you only have so many people, right? There's development, and then there's things that, like, and I say this as a game designer, having watched people break my game a lot. There's only so many things you can scenario plan for. It's just what it is. But they did
trends.
There can be. Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing that I'm saying, that they're doing a good job. Like, they're seeing it. So they released a blog post yesterday talking about territory control, and they said, hey, look, we're going to change the way tax income is distributed.
Which I think is fantastic. That's one caveat I have to all this is I am not at all upset with the way Amazon has handled things thus far.
Yep.
They've generally been pretty reactive. I was kind of miffed whenever they disabled everybody's gold, but I was worried that was going to be like a week. But it looks like they got it done in 48 hours. I think it came down today.
Some poor dev team worked really hard on that one.
Yeah, well, didn't even fix the problem.
Didn't fix it completely, but the latest the update that is releasing tonight, that's actually probably going live while we're talking about this. There's a lot of combat changes. They've changed the cost for respecking significantly. So
lowered, I hope.
Reduced coin respec for attributes by 60%. After I've already spent God knows how many times respecking. And reduce the weapon mastery respec for Azoth by X amount. So they've reduced the amount of coin in Azoth you get for losing Outpost Rush. Because you could go in and completely shit the bed in Outpost Rush as of yesterday and make 180 gold for less than 10 minutes worth of work and get all sorts of shit.
Can I take this moment to on an Amazon owned platform to ask them, what the fuck were you thinking making housing taxes 5 days instead of 7?
Also fair. That's a very fair question.
Somebody wrote some math. There's math there somewhere.
It's stupid. It's aggravating. And it's completely unnecessary because it doesn't have to be like every Saturday you're getting charged. It could just be 7 days from the time you purchased. If you purchased on a Wednesday, every Wednesday it comes up. That's easy. That's easy math and easy data points in programming to log.
I guess to kind of come back to my original question, because I don't think we've really answered it, is does New World have long-term viability? Do we think Amazon's going to pull it off?
I think they could.
I think they will for at least a year, because if you think about how long it's going to take, we've got a drought coming of good games. We don't have a lot of good MMOs coming out. WoW is going to
MMOs. I'm trying to think about video games in general. There's nothing for this holiday season, is there?
No. And if you think
technically
Battlefield and stuff, but that's a game that you pop in and out. So I'm going to go play a couple rounds of Battlefield because I'm not going to stream Battlefield religiously, not like I used to. So I'm going to go pop in and play a few games of Battlefield, get frustrated as fuck because it's a broken ass game right now. And then I'm going to go back and fish for like an hour or two in New World where everybody on my server has been here. Like we've had the biggest lobbies outside of Pummel Party on our servers playing New World. Like that community building right there for the game, at least right now, is good enough.
The only thing I wish I could do, going to like Joe's server transfer thing, and it's actually something I liked about SWTOR, and I can explain why if anybody is curious. I want to have more than one character on a server. You can limit me. You can say 2. You can say whatever. But I would like to have more than one toon on a server.
I think they run into, on a game that's built so much on the economical basis, I think that would create, if we're already seeing transfer issues and things like that, especially with like a family shared plan kind of thing, I think you're going to have even more issues if you had multiple toons. I'm not saying they can't get to it at first, because I agree. I would like to go make a mage build, and then I would like to go make my dex build, and then I'd like to go make my strength build, because I want to play all 3 of those versions of the game.
Which is exactly what I did in SWTOR. Like I had my Jedi Sentinel, and I leveled him to 60, and then I started over with a trooper as a healer spec. Now I could still run with my same guild and my people that I like to hang out with, because I was on the same server and I could go do the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because from a gear economy thing, it's, look, BOE, BOP, like, that's how you fix a lot of that stuff. Like, there's only so many things you can transfer between your tunes, right? I said, I would like to try different builds, but still hang out with the same people.
Yeah.
I will say...
Currently, I'm just spending a lot of money to do that. To respec and go find the gear and all that, you know.
I have spent 600 gold in the last 48 hours respecing my character. And this is one of the things I wanted to bitch about New World while we're on topic of New World.
Yeah.
Tanks need love. The game in general, I really like the way tanks work in the game. It's a lot more of a proactive tank. Like, you're doing more things rather than just button mashing.
Yes.
Like in WoW.
Yes.
I really enjoy that part of it, and I really enjoy that tanking requires skill. But the problem is, and this is not just limited to tank, this part, the game favors very heavily mono-stat builds.
Yes.
And I really think they need they need to address that, because that's kind of stupid and they need to fix it. But the problem where I'm experiencing as a tank is I have created a new build. It may exist in other, I don't know. I just kind of came up with it in my head. I'm sure someone else has already done it too. But I am basically unkillable to most mobs in my level range at this point. The problem is my DPS is so slow that, especially I'm up in I can't remember the name of the place.
Evanscale.
The snowy place that's just to the northeast of Evanscale. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm up there, and when I go in, usually the missions I've gotten are like, go to this fort and kill these lost, or whatever the fuck their name is. I can't remember. Every time I do that, it is a solid 15 to 20 minutes of constant fighting, because the aggro range is way too high on those mobs in that area to begin with, and it takes me so long to kill things that by the time I kill half of them, the first half is already respawned and re-aggroed on me and comes running in. Mm-hmm.
I see what you're saying.
That has resulted in basically every mission I go do typically takes around 100 to 150 gold to accomplish, because I'm constantly having to repair.
Yeah.
Like, constantly as a tank. So my options right now are either I can just keep soaking up the gold loss, which the economy is kind of fucked in terms of getting gold right now, which sucks.
Yeah, it is.
Or I can pay 340 odd gold to respec and be a DPS while I'm questing, and then pay 300 to switch back to tank when we're doing dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, tanks need some love right now.
Either they need love, or you need to have I would suffice to say, like, could you do a dual spec build where, like, you can just basically change in a town? Be like, I'm gonna get my tank gear, I'm gonna get my dex gear, or I'm gonna get my tank gear and I'm gonna get my DPS gear or whatever. And then you can only, it's like the PvP flag, only switch it in town, you know?
The only reason I don't think that's possible right now is, like one of you mentioned just a few minutes ago, this game so heavily incentivizes you to do all your stats in one stat and give no other stats your points. Like,
if you're min-maxing.
I'm saying every guide I've read, every single one of them said, fuck all your other stats. Whatever your most important one is, dump everything in there, because nothing else matters. You'll get con bonuses from gear, you'll get HP as you level up, blah, blah, blah. But unless you are doing X, Y, and Z, fuck it, it's not worth it. There is literally, I've yet to find a guy that's like, no, you should really split between these two attributes.
Strength and dex will be the one that you can get away with.
Yeah,
you can get away with that, but this is the problem, and this is the problem. Can't go a week without hating on the fantasy TTRPGs, apparently. But this is the problem that I run into with most of the fantasy TTRPGs, that this is sort of heavily kind of based on when it comes to the attributes, at least. Strength and dexterity are favored in those as well, because melee is very favored in this game, because it's an easy calculation to do.
It's easier for them to balance as well.
It's easy for them to balance. It's easier for them to calculate. It's easy for all of that kind of stuff. And so that's the reason I don't like using. I loved playing a barbarian kind of character where it was just strength and a little bit of constitution. I just go in there and my crazy wild hair flinging all over the place and just hit shit. You know, that can be fun, right? But it gets a little boring after a while, you know. To Joe's point, like when we ran together and I could DPS for him, then that was easy. We got through certain things pretty quickly. You know, they soak a lot of damage, and these particular ones that we were fighting can actually drink potions, which also make the fight go longer. So,
and this actually is an area where you can see in their design how it was originally designed to be a PvP game, and a lot of these quests, in fact, I noticed this with the way they, and I don't know if you guys did either, when I was coming up, when I was right around that 15, 16, 17 mark, the quest would tell me you should be level 16. And I would get into these ones, and when I do a level 16 quest in any other game, I expect it to be challenging but not maddening. Right?
assuming that you're at the same level.
Right. Assuming I'm at 16. Well, I was doing some of these quests, and I was like, it was like be level 15, and I was level 16 and just getting wrecked. I mean, bad. And I was like, this game really wants you to be running around with other people. It does not, the way the mobs are structured, the way everything else is done, it doesn't want you to be by yourself.
Captain Thorpe entered as a chat.
What?
You haven't run the depths, so you don't know how poor or how terrible that boss is. That boss one-shots at level 60. Still,
Yeah.
because we were like, oh, we've got our boy who's a 60. It'll be fine. We'll do fine. We've got 2 tanks. No, we got our ass handed to us. Joe, have you finished it yet?
Nope.
Okay, we still got to run Joe through it.
What I'm saying is my impression of that wrong?
No, it is Dark Souls, and I know that people keep challenging me when I say this. It's built to be as brutal as Dark Souls when it comes to PvE questing, because it's meant to be. There are a ton of people who like to play that. You can do it, because I've done a ton of things that I've been 4 or 5 levels under. It just takes a fuck ton of skill to do. And if you mess up one time, one time, you're dead.
This showcases the difference between experiences, because, and this, I'm not calling you out as a bad player here, but
he's playing Dex, by the way, chat.
I've been
so
playing,
it's not like he's got a ton of gear on him.
Yeah, I've been playing as a tank pretty much since I started, and the vast majority of the time I've been doing quests in this game, I've typically been doing quests that were 5 to 6 levels higher than what I am, and kind of cakewalking through it. I like. You said that there's been times you've gotten wrecked for being a level or 2 under. I have not experienced that, and I've been a tank.
So I'll say this, and this is again my experience. So, you know, I may not just have hit the thing, and there's a few things from a skill perspective that I've actually learned in the last week just from playing about how to play a little more defensively and do a couple things that are helping me that weren't helping me earlier. But
to not get hit.
when I was initially, before I did my first respec at 1920, I was trying for a DPS build, right? Problem with DPS build is, like, especially early game, the potions you can get and the potions that are available to you regularly, the methods of healing, suck, right? So you better be fast or you're dead, right? The flip side of that is when I respec as a healer, I'm getting better at the healing abilities. I still don't love them. And secondly, when I respec that way, I couldn't put down enough DPS. Like, I couldn't put down enough damage to keep up with my heals on the cooldowns.
Yeah.
Especially when I get into some of those areas where there's the one quest where you got to go up in the towers and find a specific chest, right? Where the little dudes will spawn out both and then attack you at the same time. And then if you're not fast enough, 2 more will spawn and come in. Mm-hmm. Right?
I don't remember that quest. Maybe I didn't do it.
Like, I fucking struggle with a couple of those. And I was like, God damn, this is pissing me off.
I think your experience is very different than mine and several others too, because I grind Windsward a lot because it's cheap and easy. Those town board quests are cheap and easy and don't get you into those crazy ass situations.
Yeah.
And then I can go back and do them when I can basically tank the boss of those areas. Sometimes.
And that's, I think, the other thing too, is it's not clear on those points. I do love, so to say some good things about New World, I love their crafting system.
Yeah.
I love the mat gathering system. I love leveling my skills. I like cooking. Cooking's a blast.
I think what you were getting at, though, is why the game's going to at least last a year, if not more. Because if so many people could support Final Fantasy 14 for as long as it was, for as small of a user base as it was. If so many people could be supporting that game and its weird kind of systems and crafting and all this kind of stuff and all like that, I think New World has a chance. I 100% agree with Joe that there's a lot of very loud people that really just need to go stop playing video games because they're never going to be happy. And I don't say that just to gatekeep them out of the thing. I say that because they're being real dicks about it for no reason.
That's fans and a discussion I've been having with a bunch of people lately, which is there's that 10% of fans
yes,
who are there to be assholes.
Well, Eternal's review bombs, right?
Yeah.
Like, is it a terrible movie? Probably not. Probably not. Is it great? Probably not. Am I gonna watch it on Disney Plus? Probably so. You know, like, it is what it is, right? And but people were review bombing it before it even came out because the internet, you know. So.
I know. To that point, I saw somebody throwing a hissy fit about the prevalence and uses of aimbots in New World.
Cool. When somebody figures out how to fix that for every FPS game on the planet,
I was like, have you played literally any FPS?
Yeah.
Ever? Because that's always going to be a problem.
I did glance once, and you were talking about a drought of games, and it's true. There's not much coming out, but there is one that I'm gonna go grab in 8 days, and I know it's a fucking hellacious cash grab, and I'm ashamed of myself for buying it, but I'm going to. And that's the GTA Trilogy Remastered Edition. And it's got 3 San Andreas and Vice City all in it. I'm going to buy it.
And on that disappointing letdown, to quote Grand Tour, that is where we will leave you tonight. Thank you for joining us, hanging through. We appreciate it. It's so much fun to chat movies with you all every week. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week. We'll figure it out. But we'll be back next week. We have Chaos on Monday.
Monday, and we will be back next week.
Yep.
Hopefully, we will get a cast more solidified soon. We're trying. We really are.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Until then, be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. If you have young children, go get them vaccinated so we can open up the world a little bit more. Very soon. You can start making your appointments now. Actually. Shout out to everybody at the FDA, the CDC, because we're getting it going. Shout out to Neuro Sexy Ass over the CDC. We love you all. Be good. Drink your water. Take your vitamins. And until then, stay weird. Good night, everybody.